Hello, everybody, and welcome to FANUC UK's Open House of 2023. It's good to have everybody here and also everybody who's watching online. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, this event is FANUC's way of raising awareness about automation and how it can help all of your businesses. It is a collaborative event, and it's incredible really, because we've done it year on year, and some of the exhibitors and system partners put their name down 18 months in advance because of how popular the event is. So it's really, really good to be talking to people, to be networking. And we've got a really nice kind of diversity as to what happens throughout the event, because of course you've got a lot of system partners next door, but in here we're going to be doing live debates, and we're going to be talking about we're going to have some speakers on stage, and it's also all about education. So whatever happens, you're going to walk away from this event educated in some way, and it's really good. My favourite part of the event is when we do the live debates, because everyone loves a bit of a heated discussion, and it can sometimes get that way, and it's all about interacting. So if you are watching, obviously online, we're on LinkedIn, YouTube, MTDCNC's website, the FANUC website, and the app as well. So it is interactive. So if you're sitting here on the floor with us, or if you're watching online, please send in those questions. Just raise your hand, because that is what this whole event is all about. And we all love a good debate as well, a heated discussion, as long as it's positive and it's pushing the industry forward. We love that. So, yeah, it's enough from me. Any questions about any of the order, just head to the FANUC website and it will tell you the order of play throughout the day. But enough from me. I'd like to welcome on stage Tom Boucher from FANUC UK for the opening speech. So thank you, Tom.
Morning, everybody. Morning. Come on, you've all been to these things before. Morning, everybody. Morning. Welcome to the 2023 FANUC Open House. I think it's 2023. I was told not to go off script and not to get political, but did anybody feel this morning that they'd woken up in 2015 again? All I kept seeing was Cameron on there, and somebody had chucked the other one in the jungle or something. Don't you wish it was 2015 again? We could rehab that vote and somebody could keep Farage in the jungle. It would be fantastic. Sorry, getting back on it. Absolutely delighted to have you here today. It is a pleasure to have you here. As Lindsay said, just join in to all of the discussions, everything that's going on. It counts on you guys to make this. I don't know if anybody watched the football the other day. Did you watch Chelsea, Man City? And how that Stamford Bridge crowd got Chelsea to play better. You're Stamford Bridge crowd, yes? So what happens up here is down to you. So please, participate, join in, make it happen. The team here at FANUC UK and the 35 different exhibitors, they've got a programme of events and a diverse array of exhibits, presentations, demonstrations, which will showcase the cutting-edge technology that have changed what's possible. What's out there now is what is going on now and what is the future of technology going forward. There's some fantastic stuff going on there. Sorry, they've given me paper, a clicker and a tie, so anything could happen here today. So bear with me if this doesn't kind of go exactly as it should. But it's through the collective efforts here that we're going to push the boundaries and shape an intelligent, sustainable future. And it's down to all of us to make sure that can happen.
Quality products with high precision, reliably every day. Giving you the gift of versatility by innovating the automation of your industry. There's FANUC, the factory automation company. Where there are values, there is quality, following the Japanese philosophy of our mother company. Strict preciseness, enabling the highest possible quality of our products. Transparency, keeping our customers close and well informed. Where there's ambition, there's improvement. Developing the suitable product for every use case. simplifying your work by constantly innovating our high-tech solutions, ensuring fast and reliable manufacturing to minimize downtimes. Where there's reliability, there's efficiency. We are always there for you, wherever you are, 24/7, providing the best customer service with lifetime support for as long as our products are in use. Where there's education, there's growth. Experience the FANUC Academy. Here you can learn the basics or excel. Where there's innovation, there's opportunity. We keep pioneering the market by incorporating the latest technological advances into our services and solutions. Where there's sustainability, there's our future. Reducing our carbon footprint and saving resources worldwide. Constantly improving the energy efficiency and durability of our products to help you reduce your carbon emissions. Where there's passion, there are people. Investing in the future generations to always stay on top. Taking care of our people as they take care of our company. Because without them, FANUC wouldn't exist. They help your business succeed with automation. Where there's automation, there's FANUC.
There's a number of sources that I've used to research this, if you believe I did research it. So I'm going to be quoting a number of people here, the IFR, the MTA, Make UK, and a number of other sources. So hopefully this acknowledgement is good enough for referencing for all of those. Today's automation has revolutionised the way we think about manufacturing, about productivity, and about efficiency. It's not only enhanced productivity, but it's improved safety, precision, and versatility. Beyond the fantastic displays on show, it's important that we recognise and discuss the impact automation has had on society as a whole. It's not only created new jobs, it's raising the skill set needed in the workforce. The five broad areas being called to be addressed generally for UK manufacturing are skills, infrastructure, finance, innovation, and business environment. They're the five things that everybody's calling on that we need to get right to help the future of UK PLC. All of them will be discussed here over the next 3 days, but I just wanted to mention a little bit about skills.
I'm feeling very nervous and also very excited at the same time.
You need to complete all the tasks in the prescribed timing, so it was quite pressured.
It helps us to prepare us for the upcoming challenges in our life.
We are the global partner of Upskilling for the robot competition. We hope that the people are more motivated to work on robots, gain more knowledge, and then use it in the practical world.
Now, upskilling is an area that I am really passionate about. As a former apprentice, I know the benefits of a technical education and the opportunities that a technical education can bring you. There is a lot of roots into this business. FANUC are proud sponsor of the World Skills event, the industrial robot section on the World Skills event. So today we've got 3 teams here preparing for the World Skills final, just outside the door here. There's a team from the UK, there's a team from Chinese, Taipei, and Hungary competing out here. And they're here practicing for the World Skills event. And there's also 5 teams down the far end from various parts of the UK competing for the UK Skills final, and they will become the team that's competing in the next round of World Skills. So it's important that we all join in and raise the level that we need in here, because these are the people that are coming into the workforce. We really need to engage with these people. So if you're walking around here today, which I hope you will, please engage with them. I was talking to one of the students this morning and he was so focused, I don't actually think he knew I was there. So if they don't talk back to you, just find another one. But they are really doing some great stuff out there, so please join in. It's important to remember that while industrial automation will offer significant benefits, it may also introduce challenges. Initial investment costs, skilled technicians or engineers, potential job displacement. However, when implemented thoughtfully and with proper planning, the benefits of industrial automation will outweigh the challenges. Your feedback and insights are invaluable to us as they help us to improve and grow. We're not here to talk, we're here to listen as well, to collaborate with you. I heard on the radio the other day something along the lines of those who know don't talk and those that talk don't know. So this is a two-way street. Please participate fully, as Lindsay said earlier on. There will be, at the time when the talks are going on, there will be people here with the microphones. Raise your hand, a microphone will be brought to you so that the people in the room and the people online are able to hear you clearly. So please join in. I don't want to get political here today. I genuinely didn't want to get political here today, but I do feel that while I have this platform, there's a few things I need to say. As a supplier of industrial equipment, I'm here to support UK manufacturers. That's my role here. That's our role as FANUC, to supply and help manufacturers. So my plea is for a strategy covering all aspects of manufacturing. The manufacturers, the whole spectrum of OEMs, tech startups, AI, everybody. We need to get everybody involved. The recent Make UK paper on industrial strategy highlighted several startling findings, and it's a good read if you haven't looked at it. I'm only going to comment on a few here just to get the debate going later. 99% of manufacturers believe the UK should have an industrial strategy. I fully agree. I believe we're one of the few countries without one, one of the few developed countries without one. I was talking with Andy Street earlier on, our West Midlands Metro Mayor, and I'm saying, Andy doesn't agree with me, but I'm saying our current government has a lot of diverse policies, but a lot of diverse policies don't make a coherent, joined-up strategy. And just to be clear, definition of strategy, as I understand it, is a plan of action designed to achieve an overall aim. We can't have a load of different policies that do that. We need to have a strategy. To make sure that it's not just party political, 56% of firms don't feel like there's ever been a joined-up government strategy for manufacturing. Again, I think that would be really hard to refute. Make UK are calling for a Royal Commission. Make UK, MTA, lots of people are calling for a joined-up strategy, not just Make UK. But Make UK are calling for a Royal Commission on strategy. Now, I don't know if that's best. I genuinely don't know enough about Royal Commissions, so I'm not going to comment on it. But I do fully agree that it needs cross-party consensus to make this right. We can't keep the current parliamentary cycle dictating industrial direction, not industrial strategies, just industrial direction. 87% of companies say an industrial strategy would give their business a long-term vision. 75% of manufacturers say an industrial strategy would offer a stable business environment. Again, it's impossible to argue with. Businesses need certainty. You all know businesses need certainty. We can't afford to keep having the uncertainty we've had for decades. We've been left behind. Not in the UK's ability to punch above its weight and to keep overcoming challenges, because, as you'll hear all the way across here today, we're brilliant at it. We are fantastic at it. We're more than the sum of our parts, but we are being left behind. We do have to have a strategy. The US have got a strategy. The EU have got a strategy. Most other developed nations have got a strategy. We had a super tax deduction, which was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. But it wasn't for long enough, and it wasn't joined up with anything else. Now, I believe there could be changes going forward in whatever the Chancellor is going to say going forward, and hopefully that will happen. But we need to make sure it's not for just until the next election. Businesses need to know that this strategy is going to be here for 5 years, 10 years, whatever you need to invest. If you're not ready to invest when the super tax deduction was going on, it doesn't matter whether it's there or not. It makes no difference. It needs to be there for years to come. It needs to be long-term, and it needs to be sustainable. I know it was Einstein who said we cannot solve problems with the kind of thinking we employed when we came up them. So my plea to Westminster is let's get all the political parties, local government, metro mayors, educational facilities, manufacturers, OEMs, all of the stakeholders together to really generate the strategy needed. I would like to ask you, if you've got access to any of your MPs, metro mayors, ministers, anybody, encourage them. We've all got to get them to park self-interest and put the UK manufacturing first. We're all responsible to make that happen. Nearly finished. So once again, I'd like to express my appreciation for you choosing to spend time with us here today. I fully appreciate how busy everybody is. My team here and I, we're committed to making this a productive, enjoyable, memorable visit, and also celebrating what automation and robotics can do now. Let's celebrate what we've got. I hope to meet some of you and talk to you, so if you see me walking around, stop me. If you see me here in the panel discussions, challenge me. Join in. That's what I'm saying. Join in with me personally and with everybody that's going on. So let's all embrace the exciting future that lies ahead, and let's make the most of the day together. Thank you.
Okay, so now it's time. We're going to start the first debate, and as Tom's just said, challenge him. So that's
nicely, though, nicely.
Nicely. Right, okay, so I'd like to welcome onto the stage. Now, ultimately, this first debate is basically tackling what this whole week is all about. And it's to do with the barriers of automation. So we've got Tom on the panel, we've got Stuart Whitehead from Jefferson Group, Dr. Bob Struck from FANUC Europe, and Bob Bradley, who is kind of hosting the event. So if you'd like to welcome all of these people on stage. Thank you.
Please, anywhere. I'll sit at the end. I'll sit out of the way.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome, both face-to-face and online. I believe there's some of you watching us online as well. Subject, the theme, is what are the barriers to automation? But I'd like to kick us off, perhaps by just finding out who there is on stage. Keep the introductions brief, but just introduce yourselves and a bit of your background, a bit of the context, so we know where you're coming from. I'll give Tom a chance just to position himself and then move along to Stuart and Bob. So it's Tom first.
All right, I'm Tom Boucher and I'm the Managing Director here at FANUC UK, so responsibility for the robots, the injection moulders, the machining centres, the EDMs, CNC, the whole of the FANUC portfolio in the UK and Ireland.
Thank you, Stuart.
Morning, everyone. My name's Stuart Whitehead. I'm the founder of Jefferson, which exists to promote and celebrate British manufacturing, and also with our friends at MTD, co-founder of Factory Now, initiative which basically designed and evolved to help companies evolve, to reshore, collaborate, and again, celebrate and promote UK manufacturing.
Thank you. And Bob?
Bob Strick, working for FANUC Europe, doing business development for basically all the new regions and markets that are developing, vertical markets like aerospace, but also regional markets like North Africa and Middle East.
Great, thank you. Welcome. Thank you. And I guess I'll just explain who I am. I'm Bob Bradley. I'm a sort of frustrated engineer. My original degree was in engineering, but I spent my whole career in services, the last 20 years of which have been working with business leaders, encouraging them to talk to each other as to how to raise their game as leaders of the businesses. And Tom was one of our members at that time. I'm now trying to retire, but I love business too much. And so I seem to find myself on stage interviewing people, on stage speaking about business and business growth, and sometimes in management team workshops facilitating them as an external party. So that's what I do now. I would be honest and say I'm probably the least qualified here, which is a good job. I'm asking the dumb questions rather than coming up with any answers. And I would also, while I'm talking to the audience, just highlight to you, as Lindsay said, we will come to you, give you a chance to come in and ask questions as well of the people on the panel. But I'd like to kick off, although the theme is the barriers to automation, I thought perhaps we should kick off in the slightly more positive tone of, let's begin with just one reason why people should automate. Why should a manufacturer even consider the sort of things you've got in this premises today? So who wants to go first with one really good reason why you ought to do it? Bob.
I meet many industries and companies that want to automate, and they all come with the same message, and not only here in the UK, but also in Europe and other countries, it's a shortage of labor. After the COVID, we've seen that many of the, let's say, basic jobs, people don't want to do them anymore. People that come from school, they don't want to stand behind a machine tool and load a metal part in it or do basic work. People want to do more automation. You know, the young people grew up with iPhones, now with AI. They don't want to do basic jobs. So even though we're 8 billion on the planet, to fill up the factories with these jobs, it's quite difficult. So there is a big need to replace, and to keep the factories working with automation.
People don't want to do the basic jobs, but I would go even further and say, well, why should we? We're living in a nice age where we shouldn't be using intelligent human beings to do things that we can ask machines to do for us. I would also comment, having listened to the radio this morning, I don't know if anybody else heard it, that real wages are going up at last, everybody says, but real wages are going up. And of course, that means if you're the accountant, the finance director, the cost of labour is going up, and maybe automation is one of an angle on labour in that way as well.
I think what I'd like to just say quickly as well is the IFR report on robotics this year says there's going to be an 18% growth. They're predicting an 18% growth in robotics in the UK this year, which is fantastic. I think it's 3% for Europe as a whole, 5 or 6% for America and places like that. So 18% is fantastic. So we are embracing it. Stuart's here to always give the good news messages, and it's fantastic. There is more good news messages out there, and we should be employing them. So we are catching up. We are not catching up. We're growing. The unfortunate thing is because we're starting from a low starting point, 18% of a small number is not as good as 5% of a huge number. So, but we are going in the right direction. We're making it happen. We're embracing technology. And a lot of it is for those reasons. Who wants to do some of those jobs that can be easily replaced by automation and then upskill the person to do something that's far more viable for them to do? So I think it is a fantastic prospect for the UK over the next few years if we can keep that predicted growth going for our automation, because we will close the gap. I mean, it's an exponential curve. I think we overtook France as the 8th largest manufacturer this year, did we? I think. And that's great. But it's like that until you get to 20, and then it goes like that for those of you. We need to get up this curve. We really need to get up there. So we need to keep doing it. We've always punched above our weight. We're always fantastic in what we do. But, we can be growing numbers and still falling behind, unfortunately. So we do need to address too.
And Stuart, just finally on the positive side.
Probably supply chain security. We've seen it post-COVID. I mean, some of the most popular posts on Jefferson, MTDCNC are about reshoring, and people really do celebrate and really get behind it. What is a barrier to that? People in the past have said it's cost, it's availability of not just skilled labour, but semi-skilled labour as well. So surely there's an argument now to adopt automation to facilitate that, because people are buying and they are looking at the provenance of products now probably more than ever in terms of where it's being made, what's the environmental impact of it. But also, I think people just took for granted, well, okay, we'll order it from, it might be 6 weeks coming from China and we'll be fine. Possibly we needed COVID, or one of the very few benefits of COVID has been to shine a light on that fragile supply chain infrastructure that is global. It's not just a UK issue.
Interesting. Okay. So let's move on to the main theme, the whole point of the conversation. What are the barriers to automation? And whilst we've got panel on the stage, I thought perhaps we should begin this by looking to the audience and seeing what anybody in the audience would suggest might be a barrier, and then your job becomes the difficult job of answering the barrier and how are we going to address it. So has anybody in the audience got a thought on what are the barriers to people taking up automation? What have you run into? What are you finding in your day-to-day jobs that are stopping people taking things forward? Come on, you can't all be shy, shrinking violets. There's a gentleman there, yes.
We've got a microphone here, someone.
Okay.
Sorry, they will.
Microphone just coming? Yep, just coming just here, over here. There we go.
Thanks. The biggest barrier that I think I've seen is kind of the cultural acceptance for how long your return on investment is or can be in the UK and what is acceptable. And I've worked at many manufacturers, and we were guilty of this as well, where if it wasn't 2 or 3 years, we weren't even going to think about it. Where, from what I've heard, is that in Asia and in other places in Europe and some places in the States, they're quite happy with 5 years, and they realize the machine's going to be running for 10 years. So theoretically, it makes sense to spread it out over the 10 years. How do we change? If that's the case, how do we change that so that we can change?
I think in the UK, it's partly the case, but it's not fully the case. I think we need to make people more aware of not just the initial capital cost, which is important. Return on investment is important, but you've got to look at lifetime running costs. You've got to look at lifetime of that product. You've got to look at a lot of other things apart from this cost X and it's going to take X to pay it back off. I mean, if you just look at the initial capital investment, you're not looking to see how much over that 10, 15-year cycle it is going to cost you to run. So look at the full return on investment. Look at the lifetime running costs. Look at all the other stuff. We can't keep having these budgets separate. Like, that's our initial capital outlay budget, this is our maintenance budget, this is our other budget. You need to look at the lifetime running costs. And if you do look at the lifetime running costs, then automation is a no-brainer. It is an absolute no-brainer. We got some of our products, you'll see the Cobots out here today, 8 years maintenance free. But if you don't take that into your calculation of looking at that, you're going to miss out the fact you're paying X thousands of pounds over the next 8 years to keep it running. How long is the warranty? All the other stuff that makes the picture. We need to give the C-suite people all of the information they need to make the decision, not just it costs whatever.
So, Stuart, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to probably exemplify as an example. One of my friends set up a recruitment company 15 years ago. He was an engineer, and he went in there basically industrial temporary recruitment. And he hates recruitment companies, and he set it up basically to explain to companies why they didn't need to use them by adopting automation, robotics. In the end, he didn't, because he said, these people are addicted to temporary labour. He said, I'll supply 15, 20 people a day. I'll make £1.50 an hour on each, £60 a week. And he said, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a recruitment business owner, I'm a drug dealer. They are addicted to this. They're looking at it on a daily basis. He said, so after 15 years, I'm still supplying 30 people a year or 20. I said, I know that they shouldn't be doing that. They're looking at it on a daily basis. And he said, I'm a multimillionaire because they're doing the wrong thing. At same companies, some very advanced companies, still doing it. I pick up the phone at 7, how many do you want? 15. And he said, it's the same answer I've had for 10, 15 years. The only thing that changes is the name of the people going in there. My margins are the same. He said, but they've given me millions and millions of pounds that should have been invested in that company over and above the salary that should have been invested, but they're still doing it today. So there is a disconnect there somehow, where people are, when they're looking at as Tom was explaining about the cost and so forth, they're not comparing like with like, or they don't have the full facts to make a business decision, and it's habit, and so we need to get rid of the drug dealers.
And Bob, any more to add to that?
Oh, yes. And, ROI is a ratio. It's the cost of your automation divided over the gains you expect to get. But the bottom part of that ratio is often not fully calculated. Sure, people often they come to me, I can replace so many workers. I always say, but the point is not to replace workers. The point is to get more output from your production, your uptime from your machine. The less scrap you have, the throughput from the moment you start manufacturing your product until it gets out of your factory, that typically shortens with automation. So these gains you need to calculate. We had a company cutting salads. So the salad comes from the field, needs to be cut, all the dirty leaves need to get out, then needs to be put in blisters. That was done by humans, but these were temporary workers coming from other countries. Immigration, there's language problems, there's hygiene problems. Today they're there, tomorrow they're not there. So this company was working two times a year in these projects. And really they said, we can't support it anymore because we cannot have sustain this consistency in our production. They replaced the production with robots, and they're happy for that.
So you would argue it's not so much about cost savings and cost reduction, so much as about growth. If you want to grow your business, you need to produce more. If you're going to produce more, you could take on people, but maybe a quicker, easier, simpler, more reliable solution is to add more machines to make the people more productive. Is that the...
Well, you need to quantify these hidden benefits and the parts which are difficult to quantify, but they're definitely there.
A quick comment from me before I go back to the audience. I think there's a question coming from over here. I said I've worked in the services industry. A lot of that was serving the IT industry. And I've noticed one of the things that's happened in the IT industry in my career has been the move from selling boxes, the kit, to software as a service. You pay a subscription. So the thought when you were speaking, Stuart, was going through my head was maybe you should be selling, here's a people equivalent. Yep, so here's something that we will contract to supply you with the equivalent of a £30,000 a year employee, but we'll do it through a machine, and we'll charge you on an annual monthly salary basis rather than a capital investment.
Well, you'll actually see it out here. There is a robot for rent.
Okay.
So you're actually going to be using that robot as a salaried employee.
Robots for rent sounds a good message to
do it. So we have to use technology in as many different ways that we can use it. So,
yeah.
But you can. What we think will happen is that will go in there and won't get changed on a daily basis. That will stay in there long term and then become part of the process that Bob's talking about. That you now do automate that process. You make it more productive, you see the benefits, and you grow.
So you get your feet under the table.
Every company that's employed automation has grown. None of them have shrunk.
Interesting.
It does make you grow. If you're more productive, if you're more efficient, if you use the benefits of automation, you grow. Simple.
Interesting. Now, I did remember Cyril Hansen were over here, was it? So it's two of you. So let's take the guy at the back for the second row first, and then come forward.
Yeah, thank you. Is that coming?
Yep.
Yeah, so a little bit of a different take here. I'm from Murray Uniforms, we're based in Coventry, and we have a real challenge on automation. We used to manufacture everything here in the West Midlands until the early 1990s, when price pressure pushed us offshore. We did the typical thing, we've got factories all over the world, globally. We want to reshore, and we have a real blockage because the garment industry still is incredibly labour intensive, and there's very little automation available at all. That's our major challenge. We really want to onshore. We want to get rid of the carbon emissions connected with shipping around the world, and we have this real challenge. We've raised it with a number of people. Alan Norbury of Siemens is one who's actively engaged looking at it with us, but it continues to be a major challenge. So I thought that might be an interesting one to drop in today.
I think engineers love challenges, love problems, so there might be a lot of engineers thinking about your challenge.
And I think the person that's going to grab the mic after you from Rockwell might be able to help as well, Siemens.
Yeah.
I have spoken to Rockwell briefly.
He's there trying to grab the mic off you now. No, but let's talk about what you need, and let's see what we can now... We have the benefit of being able to look worldwide and see how things have done. And when people think some of this stuff is getting done in lower wage economies, it's still getting done by automation in those countries. China's our biggest market for FANUC. India is the biggest growing market for FANUC. Some of these traditionally lower wage economies are still having to use the benefits of automation, the accuracy of automation, the speed of automation, the 24/7 of automation, so all the stuff that can be brought in. So let's have a talk about your production and see what we can do to help you as well. We'll gladly join in with Rockwell or Siemens.
There's definitely a follow-up there from conversation to go on. But Stuart and Bob, do you want to add to that? Is there any other thoughts you'd add?
Yeah, I can only add to Tom. Typically, we do site visits, and come with you and see really which are your pain points and where are the low-hanging fruits. If you don't have automation at all, where can we start? Because it's also a process that your company needs to grow into, and the people need to get used to it. And because you know your product and your process best. We know the automation part for sure, but you know your product best. So it's that match where we can help you and you can help us to find the solution. And we have all the simulation tools also where we can simulate solutions in the software. Doesn't cost a thing, only time, but you can see what is possible and also where are the restraints and what is not possible or what is too difficult to automate or too costly. So yeah.
It's interesting because although we're talking about a specific situation here, I appreciate it does flag up to me the more general challenge that your industry has of educating the marketplace as to what is possible and how can it be done. Stuart, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that for several years we've been tracking companies that have been onshoring, and there are examples within your industry. So if you want Possibly you'd be aware of some of them anyway, but I can certainly give you the details if you want to have a chat with people to explain. They can explain how they did it. I'm sure they use Tom.
Absolutely. If they're still going.
Yeah. So we can share that information with you and see if that would be useful.
I'm aware there was another question coming from here, so I'll just because I saw them, I'll thank you. Pass the microphone forward while it's there. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, panel. Mark Harris from Rockwell Automation. Happy to talk to you later. I had a quick question. I was actually going to go down the same line as my colleague around ROI, but closing the skills gap and the lack of skilled workforce is a barrier that I see to move UK PLC forward. I'm interested to get a perspective of what FANUC are doing. I mean, we saw the world skills stuff. Mm-hmm. What are FANUC doing, and how do you think we each locally can help sort of close that gap and drive the young generation into engineering?
I mean, I think we need to make young people aware that manufacturing, engineering, the whole gamut of what's going on is a very viable career path. I don't think we've made people aware enough of what is involved in it and that how multifaceted this business is. So we need to make people aware. We've got a target here in the UK to have 10% of our employees as apprentices, as current apprentices. Because we've had a sudden growth spurt over the last couple of years, we're falling slightly behind that, but we will get back to that. And I think we have to all get involved in the world skills, in a lot of the apprentice centres, in a lot of the educational facilities. When I talk about education, if I go into any company and talk about education, the bosses always think I'm talking about the apprentices. I'm actually talking about them. So we need to educate the whole way up, and we need to tell them why they need to keep this pipeline of talent coming into this business or this industry. We do have a huge amount of talent in this country. I mean, if you look back through history on what we've done as innovators, as inventors, as everything that's gone on, I mean, it's phenomenal what we've done. I mean, to be this little island off the side of a big island that is the 8th largest manufacturer in the world is fantastic. That's just way up there on where we should be. So we need to make people aware of what can be done. We also need to and we're in a position where we try to do it because some of our products are seen as the tools to play with. It's a lot easier to engage somebody on a robot than it is on something that isn't as tactile. You know, they can come in and play with a robot. So we have a duty to make that happen. But that would be my call to everybody. We have to do it. You have to employ these people. You have to bring people in, not just use them as cheap young labour. Actually train them to be what we need them to be. Give them the skills needed to go forward and pay my pension in a couple of years. We need to make sure they're usable. We need to make sure that they've got the skills needed, not just be here and in the corner and seen and not heard. Let's make them, and that's why we'll promote world skills. We'll shout about it. I'll give them as much space as they need in here.
Can I ask you, Bob, to talk about what differences you see in other countries compared to the UK? The compare and contrast. To use the exam question, compare and contrast the UK and other countries, because I know, maybe I'm prejudiced, maybe I don't know enough about it, but I feel as though we don't promote engineering manufacturing quite to schools quite as well as other countries do. Am I wrong in that? Am I right in that? And what do they do differently?
I think, on the contrary, I had the privilege of going to visit some of your universities here and see how they are fitted with automation equipment, not only ours, but also from the competition and peripheral equipment. I would say you're on a very good level compared to some of the other countries in Europe.
Interesting.
So you're doing quite well. So keep
that's reassuring.
Keep on going there. Absolutely. To answer your question, you also said, what is FANUC doing in that respect? We're rolling out on a European basis the new customer portal. We have today My FANUC. We're making a new one where you will find all kinds of tutorials. So if you want to work with cobots, you can click on it. Software is key. Coming here to learn physically to work with the robots is one, but if you are far away, you don't have time, or you want to do it in your own time, this is another possibility to do it. And we are making a new portal, to bring that information very much to the users.
That's good. So Stuart, am I alone in my self-flagellation of the UK that we don't treat people properly?
I mean, there's an awful lot of good stuff going on. I think one of my frustrations for a number of years, really, where we can have the same conversation year after year about skills shortage, STEM engagement, and so forth, but we still quite often try and use the same tool. Middle-aged people talking to middle-aged people in a room, it's never going to work. Very young middle-aged people like Tom. And what the Brits ever done for us, Tom? I thought you were going to go through it. And I think some of the videos that MTD have done, for example, interviewing apprentices, a 16-year-old is more likely to relate to somebody who's 17, 18, rather than somebody in the 40s, 50s or 30s. So I think it's having those as ambassadors. I've been to loads and loads of meetings where people agree and go away and then reconvene a year later. We've seen the technology here today with MTDCNC. The video content is so important. Using all the different social media tools where I don't think we can rely on parents or teachers to sell the professional or sell the sector. I think we've got to go direct. We've tried it and it's not worked. And we've got all the tools to do that, and we've got the platforms to do that. So why repeat something that's not been worked? It hasn't worked for decades, so why repeat it?
That's interesting, because I guess without knowing the detail, I would come at it from a slightly different angle, which is that I see one of the challenges is the fact, and I'm thinking about my daughter here, who went to school, went to university, and became a teacher. I've also got a best friend from the same age as me, who went to school, went to university, became a teacher, back in the same school as he was at school at, and has never seen the rest of the world. So I wonder whether, Tom, I mean, you're preaching to converted here. Do you have times when you get all the teachers in to come and see some of the apprentices and how they're enjoying loving the manufacturing world?
Absolutely. We try and engage with as many schools and colleges in the area as we possibly can. I mean, we have to spread that message. Parents coming in with the children or the school children, bring them in. We need to get that to everybody. You're right. They won't listen to me. I've got very little in common. I've got nothing in common. But they will listen to our apprentices, our current apprentices, just recently graduated people. Good. So we need to make that happen. We also need to give them the places to go and study that as well. I went to a very good polytechnic in North London when I was doing my apprenticeship. It was a fantastic polytechnic that's now a third-rate university. Let's get polytechnics back and give them the technical education they actually need, not some watered-down university education.
Yep, I could chat to you over a pint forever about that, Tom, because I'm totally on the same page. Okay, let's turn back to the audience. Got a question over there from Make UK, I think. Yep. Well, mic's not on yet. Just try again. Is that
working now? Right. So I'm Ben, I'm from Make UK, Apprenticeships and Skills, and following on from what you've said, we engage heavily with schools and also other education partners just to sell and everything from engineering, from some simple jobs all the way through to working with automation and things like. My colleague James here does a lot with recruiting, and we go to special events. We've held events at Millennium Point, which is our own event, where we invite all of the employers that may or may not be working with us to actually speak to school leavers, people that are at school as well. Like you said, my wife, as a teacher, she went through the whole education system, is not aware of everything else, and we're dealing with junior and infant school. I've got a colleague, Fiona, who works as an engagement manager, and we are trying our absolute best to work with as many employers as we possibly can, not only to provide the apprenticeship provision that we do at Make UK as well, our centre in Aston, but also just to shout about manufacturing and engineering in the UK. Make UK, as you may be aware, is the largest engineering and manufacturing membership body in the UK, and we're here to support people like FANUC all the way through down to the small SMEs and everyone else involved. So if anyone does want to have a conversation with me or my colleague James, please come and see me and we can discuss how we can support moving forward.
Great.
50 quid for that advertising.
Yeah. We've got about another 5 minutes, so we've got another question over there that's hopefully going a slightly different direction.
Thanks. Seb from HAL Robotics. My question's really about people starting their automation journey. We get a lot of clients who don't have a robot yet, are keen to get their first one, And because the rest of their process is entirely manual, what's going into the automation cell is not adapted to automation, and therefore the complexity of the project spirals. They don't want to automate an entire line straight off the bat. How do you go about kind of helping people through that first step into the process?
Step by step project management
Bob
process.
touched on it earlier on. I think one of the things you've got to do is go for the low-hanging fruit and pick something that will give you the return. What a lot of people make the mistake on when they're looking at it is the most difficult thing that they don't want to do. Let's try and automate that. And that's not going to work. That's likely to fail. That will work in a number of years' time once they've gone on their automation journey. So pick something that people can buy into. People can see that it's not there to change, it's not there to replace their job, it's there to enhance their job. People can see it will help the company grow. People will go on and join on that journey. So I would suggest doing an audit of the complete process, agreeing with whoever your automation supplier is, this is the best place to start this journey and why, and then roll it out from there. You can go vertically from there, horizontally from there. You can go any different direction you need from there. So I would suggest talking to somebody, looking at what is the best thing to automate, what will give you the fastest return, what will prove people right, and prove that automation journey to everybody. Because it isn't a bad journey. It is a good journey. And it will secure long-term jobs. It will secure long-term future of that company. So we'll happily, well, I won't get involved. I've got a bunch of salesmen that will happily go out and do that for you. We'll happily come out and do an audit of anybody's production facilities, offer you advice, and leave you to go and find the other people, the providers. That's why it's important for us to have here today 35 different exhibitors as well as other people, because this isn't just a FANUC journey. This is how we move UK manufacturing forward. I can get a lot of people in here today because the 35 exhibitors are not selling FANUC. They're selling services to automation. Some of them will be using FANUC, obviously, and all of them have worked with us at some stage. But it's to look at the bigger picture. I'm happy with our share of the UK market. But what I'd like to do is grow the UK market. If I can keep my same market percentage of a market that's 5 times bigger, I'm even happier. So I want to grow that. So involve us in it.
So we're coming towards the end. So I'll just finish with a slightly provocative comment from me for you three to respond to, if you like.
Sit back and get comfy for this one.
And we've talked a bit about how we need to change other people's perception of manufacturing. And clearly everybody here is passionate about manufacturing engineering, and quite rightly so, and it's an important industry, and we do need to change the world to make it to make more manufacturing stronger. However, one of the things that struck me is it's also about sometimes changing your own behaviour in order to change the world. Look at the world differently. And one of the observations I'd make is that before I came on stage, I did a quick Google search on the top robotics automation companies in the UK, and then I did a quick look at their websites. And it won't surprise you that what I saw on those websites was lots of pictures of machinery. I then did a quick search on a leading accounting software manufacturer, an IT company. And what did I see on their page? Did I see any reference to software? No, I didn't. It talked about this sort of industry, that sort of industry, how we service that industry, what the benefits are of using our products. They didn't talk about the software. And so the point I'm making is that it does look to me as though there's a pattern of manufacturers being so proud of manufacturing, they can't help but talk about it, when actually the finance director doesn't want to know about manufacturing. They want to know about how do you improve productivity, how do you improve profit, how do you improve cash flow. So I would sort of challenge everybody in the audience and yourselves, and just giving you a chance to fight back, that maybe you need to look at yourselves in the mirror a little bit more and think about how do we make sure we're talking to what the audience cares about, not what we care about. Tommy, any response to that? Oh no, let me let you go last as the host. So let me start with Bob and then move along.
Then I can just copy everybody else.
It's a tough one because, you have to see where you come from. And we are a Japanese company and we are an R&D technology-driven company. So this is in our veins, this is in our DNA, and this is what we breathe. So we think robots, we think automation, we see machines, and if you buy a car, you go to BMW, Mercedes, you see happy, shiny people, and the car is somewhere in the background. No, we will put the robot first because, hey, look, this is our new baby, So Yeah, it's clear that there is a room for us to grow and to go to the next level, and we're trying to do that definitely.
Put yourselves in the shoes of the finance director. Yeah. What do you think, Stuart?
No, I think it's a valid point. A lot of the manufacturers and engineering companies that we deal with, one of the reasons they use us and the likes of MTD is because on their website it's a shop window which could be for a global market, it could be for a whole plethora of different industries. Because of that, it becomes quite standardized and they become quite similar because it can't be too niche and can't answer everything. So to complement that, rather than replace it, they may use, different pieces of content on social media to get a particular point across. You're talking about adoption of, first time dipping your toes in the water. It's case studies really, where manufacturers and engineers are more likely to listen to manufacturers and engineers. A lot of work going on, great work with Make UK, Made Smarter Commission and so forth. But they are still more inclined to listen to people within the industry. I think the marketing is changing, the branding is changing in manufacturing and possibly catching up with other industries. It's possibly not as agile, it may not need to be as retail but I think the manufacturing landscape is changing. I think the manufacturing route to market is changing. I think there's going to be a lot of change over the next 5 to 10 years, and there's a possibility that the importance of websites will diminish as people have a more kind of agile and almost like a fast fashion solution, and social media probably will be the right platform for that.
Great. And let me give the final words to our host today. So over to you, Tom.
I think I'm going to agree and disagree with you in equal portions. All of the information that people need, and I can only speak on behalf of the world's biggest and best automation company, all of the information is on that website. As Bob was saying earlier on some of the customer portal, all the information on return on investment, on lifetime running costs, and all the decisions you need to make, as well as just the cost, is on there. But FANUC certainly, is predominantly just a bunch of engineers. So sometimes I accept our website can look more like a data sheet than a sexy interactive web. But the information is there. How we present it, we do probably, as Bob just said, maybe we do need to work on. But if you go in there with anything in mind, from the finance director, the manufacturing director, ops director, what you need to know to start your automation journey, there will be information in there for you. We'll work on making it nice and easy and putting some nicer front
And I
tools.
certainly know once they engage personally, they'll get that from yourself, Tom. So can I thank the audience very much? Thank the audience, but also thank the panel very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Tom, just before we continue, I just want to kind of join the panel. This is a little bit naughty, but we go out as a company and we go out to some engineering companies, and just 2 points I want to make is when I go out to, say, a really good engineering company that's thriving and the managing director flies a helicopter at the weekends, we can't create a video when we're showing how successful he is and the money he's making and he's flying his helicopter and he can go on every holiday, because it just seems a little bit inappropriate because we're selling his lifestyle. And also when we go out and we talk about components, when we talk about components, we don't see that it's made for a bike and this is the end goal. We're actually, and engineers want to know about the smaller components. So I don't know my thoughts on that, as in how we can change perception of how do we sell a robot, how do we try and help promote a robot by then showing off his lifestyle. It's a really difficult angle to go down. And just to add to that, because there's not like it's quite open-ended there. I went to a company called Superstar Components the other day, and it was a guy who lived over the other side of the country. He had a business, he had about 4 or 5 people working for him, COVID hit, and then he moved his company on his own, so he didn't have any staff members. He then moved to work on his own. There's probably 15 machines there. Every single one of his machines had a form of automation on. Every one. His company's thriving, and it's just him with 15 machines. That's incredible. And he's doing really well. He sees things differently. He's quite a genius, but there are case studies and there are people out there that are doing it. So it's worth, like for us, we're proud we get to go in there and we get to interview people. But also, if there's any advice that I can give to anyone, talk to these people. This company, his name was Neil, Superstar Components. I'm sure he'd like to shout out about it. But there are people living that, and it's for our job at MTD to try and get that voice heard and people to see it. But also, it's a case of just talk to people. There are people in the industry that have success stories, so just talk. That's my thing.
Well, I think that's key to it as well, is that a lot of people think automation is for the big manufacturers. It's not. It's for the small 1, 2, 10, 15 people companies that will get the most benefit from automation. The huge big multinationals know what to do. They know how to look after themselves. It's the small SMEs that really need to start that automation journey. So yeah, anything that anybody can do to get us that message to those people, we're happy to engage with as well.
Right, I think we're done on this one. Thank you so much. I had to just say that because there's some real success stories. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Cheers, Tom. Thanks.
Okay then, so next we have a presentation for you, and we'll be talking about a facility that's literally only opened this year. It's a concept factory that is implementing different digital technology. So, we're going to talk about a success story here. I guess it's a kind of look into a factory of the future. So this presentation is integrated robotics in the model-based enterprise, the OmniFactory approach by Svetan Rachev, the director of the Institute of Advanced Manufacturing. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. I'll touch in my presentation some of the points that the panel addressed in terms of our science and technology base in manufacturing, but also how we're transforming manufacturing to address some of the real societal and economic challenges that we have. So, if we look in the future, let's try to imagine how manufacturing is going to change. And there are different industries. In aerospace, we look at new concepts of aircraft, new propulsion systems, new fuel systems, which are much more customized. And then different companies come with different production concepts and solutions for that. If we look in the automotive industry, you can see the Audi factory of the future, which is a move away from the transfer line, where parts are delivered to assembly stations, and also we have a different type of logistics, which is highly digitalized. They call it Logistics 2.0. And also at the bottom there in the middle is the picture of Arrival, which is another highly innovative company that is trying to develop localized production for particular type of vehicles very close to the customer, utilizing existing facilities, but it's all highly automated based on robotics. Even the mass production of food in the food industry and the consumer products, they're changing as well. They're becoming much more customized. On the top there, you can see the concept of the chocolate factory of Nestle, where different Kit Kats can be manufactured to specific customer requirements with specific flavors and specific packaging. And we all know about Nike customized trainers and how that can be delivered to the customer very rapidly. So what does this mean in terms of industrial challenges? So we're moving to a state where we have more variable and unpredictable demand. There is a need for a rapid ramp-up, first to market, but also in some cases, even more importantly, first to volume. And we're most likely to end up with mixture of low and high volume products, and what kind of manufacturing systems are required for that is another challenge. Products are becoming more customized, more configurable. In many cases, they're moving to platform-based products, which can be customized and delivered for different applications. We also have the challenge of resilience to disruptions in the supply chain, and we had a variety of recent examples in terms of geopolitical environment, pandemic, and all sorts of other challenges. And in the UK, we have a specific challenge in terms of high labor cost and shortage of skills in key manufacturing processes and sectors. So, if we look at this, we obviously need new manufacturing concepts that can address these challenges. And what we have done in Nottingham is we had this investment from the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund to develop a national demonstrator of Future Factory, and we call it the OmniFactory. So what is the OmniFactory? The OmniFactory tries to break with tradition by allowing the development of a much more connected, agile manufacturing infrastructure, where you bring different assets in almost coalitions of assets that can deliver different production operations. So with that, what we target here is much more cost-effectively ability to manufacture complex products in variable volumes. Also, different level of ability to respond to demand and volume fluctuations, ability to respond and accommodate changes in product design, mix and scheduling priorities, but also accepting very late design changes, having manufacturing environment that can cope with product design changes up until the last moment. And with that, we're trying to dramatically reduce time to market and also support for rapid production scale up, but also scale down, and always manufacturing with the most cost-effective configuration of manufacturing assets. And all this also feeds to new manufacturing models, business models, including manufacturing as a service. And manufacturing as a service is becoming very popular. Currently, there is a European call in the Horizon program on manufacturing as a service. And quite a lot of that depends on how manufacturing operations are structured and delivered. So how do we do this in the OmniFactory? From our research perspective as a university, we had several cornerstones of the development of the OmniFactory. The first one is how we integrate the physical and the digital models in an integrated environment, and that is a critical requirement. The second element is having a common architecture, common semantics, and also behavior models that can be applied to develop the manufacturing facilities and then configure it in a different way. Another critical component is the advanced decision-making with integrated data analytics and artificial intelligence, using of edge technologies and edge devices where data is processed and fed back into the process, but also the whole environment is integrated into unique end-to-end enterprise. And the fourth element here is about how we capture manufacturing knowledge, how we can package it, and how we can deploy it, and in some cases monetize it. And this is what we call the Omni Apps environment. It's basically creating manufacturing apps which can be deployed for a particular process on a variety of different types of equipment. And we have some very good examples of that. So in order to integrate that, we have this integration of device, system, and plant level, which allows us to take product requirements, develop bill of materials, bill of processes, bill of equipment with an integrated product lifecycle management system, and then develop digital twin environment of the manufacturing environment, test and validate different programs, PLC programs, OP programs, and then deliver that executed on the shop floor level. You can see here the integration of different, in this case, they're different, mostly Siemens products, but that is not specific to Siemens. It could be any product. More importantly is what are the models and the activities behind it. behind this environment. So what this allows us to do is this end-to-end digital thread, starting with product design requirements and finishing with system deployment. How does this work? So we start with product design, extracting of product requirements and translating these product requirements into processing requirements. Once we have that, we use different discrete event simulation tools. In this case, it's plant simulation, to define the type of manufacturing system, the level of flexibility, the level of automation required, which will be best for the type of products and the volume that we have. Once the broad definition of the system is completed, then the next stage is to develop the digital model of the system, or digital twin, if you want, of the environment, which allows us to configure different assets, position them, and then start developing the control programs in terms of PLC programs, robot OLP programs, testing and validating that. And the testing and validation is done in this virtual commissioning stage, which in our case we use Process Simulate as our digital twin environment of the manufacturing system. Once this is validated, tested, and verified, it can be deployed on the shop floor. So, how this works? Couple of stages that I'm going to show you here. The first one is, this is a project called LCAT, which is delivered for GKN, and it is about configuring of low-cost fixtures and then assembly of different products. In this case, it's a rudder and a winglet. And you can see here the main robot is FANUC M900 with enhanced optical encoders, which give us better accuracy and better positioning. So what we do with this is we develop all the programs, we validate them in the environment, and once they're validated and verified, then the actual configuration and the individual PLC and robot programs are downloaded to the shop floor. The shop floor also is defined in terms of configuration, and this is a map of the facility which is required to be configured for the next product. What this also allows us is to rapidly configure from one product to another. The whole concept started years ago when we looked at how we can change low volume production. Instead of having a production line, we ended up with an environment which can change and mutate to represent each individual step in a traditional flow line. So another element of this is how we develop the PLC programs and the OLP. In this case, you can see the PLC program, which is automatically generated, and then we have a software in the loop where we have a soft PLC which is used to control the simulation environment for first step of validation. Then we have a hardware in the loop where we have a hardware PLC controller with the software in terms of the digital twin environment. And finally, we have commissioning on the shop floor, which is hardware to hardware. Now, this is a brief overview of the OmniFactory, just a very quick tour. So the OmniFactory, we developed it and it was officially opened by Brian Holliday from Siemens in March this year. It starts with this control environment, which is specifically designed. We worked with a local company to design it so it can help us with how we interact, how people interact with technology. And we have different groups of experts. We have technical experts, we have senior industrial executives, and we also have children and politicians. And we need to present the technology in different ways so it can be better understood. The actual OmniFactory is based on the configurable flow, which is based on accurately positioned points where we can configure rapidly different assets, and also channels, underground channels, which provide all the services. So we have a clean floor where we have a number of AGVs that can be moved around. And that allows us to have a number of integrated robot cells, mostly in these cases for assembly of aerostructures, but the principle can apply to anything. So a couple of examples of implementations. The first one is this project LCAT, which was with GKN. And what that allows us to do is deliver dramatic step change in manufacturing practices, retain and secure jobs, increase revenue per job or per person, and also significant return of investment within a very short period. Another program which we're just completing is a program called FlexCell, which is about building of primary structures and effectively redefining the assembly processes by delivering jigless assembly. In this case, you can see the, I can't point it, but you can see that it's a section of a fuselage of an aircraft. And what this allows us to do is deliver automated inspection process, which was created and commissioned in 10 days. Structure assembly reduced, the time for structure assembly reduced from days to 80 minutes. And also jigless assembly approach, which is one of the first in the world, if not the first done in this way, which delivers significant non-recurrent cost reduction. So this is some of the examples of the programs that are currently being delivered within the OmniFactory. So the OmniFactory is based in our advanced manufacturing building of the Institute for Advanced Manufacturing. You can see the team there working on that. And it is an investment by the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. It is a national facility which is open to industry to test, validate, and de-risk different technologies. And I'll finish with a summary of what the OmniFactory delivers. It is a blueprint for future manufacturing infrastructure. It provides this fully connected semantic model-based enterprise approach where we have end-to-end digital thread of a model-based enterprise. It is rapidly deployable and scalable as a production concept. We have a lot of metrology, and I didn't mention much of it, but a lot of the environment there is integrated with metrology, so we have metrology-enabled inspection, variation awareness, and load tooling assembly. And as a whole, it provides new levels of agility, responsiveness, and asset utilization. And I'll finish with this. Thank you. Any questions?
No? Okay, thank you very much, Fatan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay then, after speaking with colleagues and knowing the industry quite well, as I'm out and about all the time, we're hearing a lot more about an increase in Cobot sales. So we're going to do a talk next, and this is Cobot Market Trends by Paul Richards from FANUC Europe. So welcome to the stage, Paul.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let's just get on to the right slide. Nope. Okay. Okay. First of all, introduce myself. My name's Paul Richards. I work for FANUC in Europe. I've worked for FANUC now for 7 years, 2 years working for the European Sales Coordination Team, which look after vertical markets in like food, medical, tier one, battery manufacturer, that sort of thing. My role is slightly different because I have a product responsibility. And what I do is I support the sales teams around Europe and sit between the technical and the marketing team. In total, I've worked in automation for around about 22 years, a little bit longer if I go back to selling the first robot system with a machine tool company. It would be about 24 years. So what I want to cover really is about the market growth in cobots. What are the different drivers for cobots? What are the trends in development of robot technology? Changes in investment? And also some application examples we'll run into. I can only do so many because I've only got 20 minutes and they can be quite long videos. One thing I would say about cobots, and just listening to the talks that were on beforehand, I think we're in a unique position now in the automation industry, now that cobots are in the market and becoming more and more established. That when you look at the machine tool industry, where you're selling CNC machines, for instance, there is always some manufacturers or some machines that are low cost. We call them entry-level machines. And those entry-level machines are ideal for the smaller manufacturing companies that wanted to move in from manual machines to CNC machines. And the manufacturers of those machines look at them as a first step into the market, into that customer, because it's low cost, it's simpler to use, and blah, blah, blah. We've never had that in the automation industry, because if you want to automate something with an industrial robot, then you have to guard it. Sometimes there's a PLC or a control system. There's other equipment, there's conveyors, there's a whole process, there's where the product comes from, where it goes to. It's quite a big project to look at. What we now have with the Cobot product is something slightly different. We kind of, for the first time, have an entry-level product. So a company that hasn't got any automation can take on a Cobot in a simple form, a simple application, and delve into automation for the first time, like companies have done for many years with CNC machines. I just wanted to kind of add that in. So these figures here on growth of the Cobot market, this is from the British Robotic Association, and what they've done is they've compared the percentage of cobots in the market compared to industrial robots. Now, there's a lot of market surveys out there. We tend to think a lot of them are over-exaggerated about the size of the market. Quite often, the value-wise, they look at the value of the overall system, not just the robot itself. From a manufacturing point of view, we like to know what the market's worth from just the robot. But one thing they're all in common with is that they all have massive growth, around about 30% year on year. There is now, we estimate, over 50 manufacturers of cobots in the market. Not all of them, the majority of them really are just cobot manufacturers. So, for instance, with FANUC, we manufacture industrial robots as well as cobots, as I'm sure you know. But there's the majority of that 50 plus are just cobot manufacturers and not industrial robots. What we're seeing in the market now, and this is kind of relevant to investment strategies, I suppose, is there's a lot of partnerships. Because some of these companies are really quite small, they're starting with a very low base of staff, and they're looking at having agents and routes to market to sell the product. So what they're doing is they're tending to amalgamate with other companies, bigger companies, so that then they're on the back of that, then the bigger company has a cobot to sell and the smaller company has a route to market. And there's quite a lot of that. But we're already seeing quite a lot of these companies either going into insolvency or being bought up and amalgamating with others and that sort of thing, partly for the technology. And also what we're seeing as well is some copies from Asia, which are copies of the leading brands of cobots as well. And also a common trend is to be using a cobot where really an industrial robot should be used. So it's being put behind guarding, it's interlocked, and it's happening quite a lot. And quite often it's because they're being sold to end customers that don't necessarily understand the automation industry and how to put together an industrial cell. But what they're doing really is sometimes buying a more expensive unit than they need to if you're guarding it anyway. The benefit of a cobot is that you don't need the guarding around it. So why buy a more expensive robot which is capable of not having guarding and then guard it? It doesn't really always make sense. So what are some of the drivers? You can see here this graph. we were talking about earlier on as well. I think to back this up, I think we all know it. There is a real shortage of staff. And this is a report here you can see on this graph from Eurostats, and this is basically the whole of Europe. We can see that we're really in a good position with almost full employment, and that's across the world as well. The UK, Europe, and America, they all complain about it. Again, what was said earlier on, people now don't want to do dirty, dull, dangerous, and repetitive jobs. Who wants to be standing there picking a box up and placing it? Welding now is termed as possibly carcinogenic from the fumes that come from it. Who really wants to go in that with that knowledge that you could be getting welding fumes and it could give you cancer? There's a lack of traditional skilled engineers around like welding. But what we do have is millennials and Generation Z. These children are growing up with mobile phones. They all know what a QWERTY keyboard is. The older people amongst us, when did we start using them? Probably sometime in the mid-80s when we had our first computer or something. But, they're used to touch screens, they're used to icons. The whole trend of programming cobots now is going that way, to be familiar to a lot of the younger generation. It's not quite so easy for the old generation to sort of adapt to some of these new technologies. When you see what younger people can do. A good example is that the CRX has recently had an upgrade on the tablet that we can use Bluetooth from the tablet, which we couldn't do before. There was only one connection out of the tablet. I thought, well, what do we use that for? Give it to a young engineer. I connect it to a speaker, so now I can get the tablet from the teach pendant to talk to the speaker, so it can talk to an operator. I never thought of that. They thought about it. So the other changes, the great resignation, the COVID-19 fallout still, retirements. People decided to retire early because of the situation that we found ourselves in. People re-evaluated life, and it's left us with a skilled and non-skilled shortage of people. Reshoring and supply chain issues. I think everybody felt that going through COVID-19, and I think somebody earlier on was talking about their manufacturing facility. I couldn't hear everything, but they're talking about reshoring as well. So it's really quite a common thing to do. Short product life cycles. We're finding that the marketing people want to be able to change the products very quickly. They want to go from 4 in a pack to 6 in a pack to 20 in a pack. They want to change the box size. Whatever it is, I think they can appeal to a customer. So this makes hard automation and industrial automation a little bit difficult to justify in a way if you keep changing the product. Cobots are much easier to reprogram. Maybe not as fast as an industrial robot, but it does give you a lot more flexibility. That's basically what I was covering there. So end customers now for the first time can be able to change programs, modify a lot easier and in a much safer way than do in industrial systems. Ease of installation, quick setups, programming and flexibility. Resilience and sustainability. So we were talking, I think, a lot as well earlier on about investments. Now, one of the issues that companies have, manufacturing companies have, when it comes to investing in an industrial system, if they want to finance it, or they want to lease it, or rent it, or whatever, what the finance company will do is they'll look at the residual value of that system. And when you break it down, there's very little value to it. You've got a robot, and you've probably got a few other bits and pieces in there that could be resold. But you're never going to recover the cost of design, the cost of installation, the cost of the commissioning, and all those labour things that go into an industrial system. So it makes it very difficult then to lease or rent a bespoke system. With Cobot, it's different. We have to think of a Cobot system now, a simple Cobot system, being a little bit more like a CNC machine. You move it from one manufacturing site to another site, you reprogram it, put a bit of different tooling on the end of it, away you go. Here's another way of thinking about investment as well. Let's look at this welding cell here that I robbed from the internet. This is a large frame here that's going to be welded up. What you've got is a gantry system on a rail with a vertical axis and an industrial robot hanging off that. So you've got 6 axes on the robot, vertical axis is 7 axes, one that goes across, it's 8 axis, and then one that goes along 9, and then possibly one to turn over 10. Cost of that? £1 million maybe? I don't know. Very efficient, but what you've got is one robot welding. Why not think of it like this? Why not have 4 heads welding with a Cobot? Have one technician go along, set up, manually turn the fixture over or semi-automatically turn the fixture over to turn the other side, use a vision system to find out where the product actually is, which a large system like that would probably have to do because product that large welding, it's going to bend, it's going to be not exactly in place. So it's just a different way of thinking about these things. Now, when you think about that, the investment cost is a lot lower. A lot lower. And you've got something that's flexible. You can move the Cobot around. You'll see them out here in the exhibition. Gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot less cost. So for a manufacturing organisation, there is nowhere near as much of a risk than buying a big system like that. If that product changes, it's very easy to change the programming because it's all modular. Okay, so technically then, what is changing technically that we're seeing trends? Increase in payload. When we first moved to having a higher payload robots, everybody said, well, why do you want to pick up 35 kilograms? We're now going to 50 kilograms with that robot. One of the reasons is to reduce cycle time. It's not about necessarily just picking up something heavier, because the worry is with a Cobot and without guarding, the product could be dropped. Obviously, that needs to be taken into account. So one of the advantages is you can pick up something heavier. But think about it for palletising. If you've got a load of 3 kilogram boxes or 5 kilogram boxes, it soon doesn't take too long until with the weight of the gripper and 3 or 4 boxes in a row that you're going to get to 25 kilograms, particularly with offset load. So what it means is if you can pick up a row of boxes to palletise and put them down individually with an intelligent gripper, then you reduce your cycle time. That means the robot can run slower, more likely to be in a collaborative mode as well. So it's not just about, it is about picking up higher payload, but the advantages are not just the higher payload, but reducing the cycle time. Easy teaching. I'll show you a little video shortly about icon-driven. This is what I'm talking about, simplicity, rather than writing in line code. An intuitive way of programming with icons and a question and answer system, which is a lot easier. Offline programming, we're seeing more and more, even for cobots, particularly with something like palletising, because somebody can sit there, program the next palletising pattern, ready for when to download it to the line, and then they don't have to stand there with the robot not working, and not producing or not palletising. AI bin picking. 3D bin picking, it's been around for a while. Depalletising is the same, but we can do this now with a Cobot, with the camera mounted on the arm. Gives you lots of flexibility and accounts for the fact that boxes can be slightly out of position. Application monitoring traceability. I'll talk about this a little bit as well, because we're talking generally with Cobots about much simpler systems, but all the same, because it's a simple system, doesn't mean that the manufacturer doesn't want something that's a quality product produced. So how is that being traced? I'll talk about that in a little bit. Food grade and clean room. So if you're working within the food environment, you need to make sure that if any grease or anything did have a problem with the Cobot, you're not going to be dripping grease onto the product, and it's then going to contaminate the food, all the medicines or whatever it is that you're dealing with. So also clean room as well is becoming more and more important, because with clean room environments it means there's less people walking in and out, makes it more efficient for the manufacturer. An increase in the ecosystem. So you'll see a lot of these companies around here today exhibiting. They're all working on products that can be used in Cobots and Cobot designed products that are nice and soft. They're easy to program, easier to use. And that is growing more and more and more. Because you buy Cobot, it's only the start of your story. It doesn't do anything except wiggle around and waste your electricity. You have to put something on the end of it. You have to apply it. And these companies are there to help and work very closely with us. Wising up to long-term product support. I think, again, Tom talked about this, about overall equipment efficiency, what is the cost of your product. With this new market with over 50 manufacturers, in the industrial robot market, there's around about 6, maybe 7 large manufacturers, but there's 6 that do the vast majority of industrial robots. There's over 50 in the Cobot market, and it's nowhere near as big as that. Logic tells you they're not all going to survive. So what's going to happen if you invest in that product now? What happens in 5, 10, 15 years' time? And particularly in the UK, how many times I've been into a factory and there's somebody there really pleased because the Dean Smith and Grace lathe they had, and it was their grandfathers and the grandfathers before that, and it made something during the war, and it's still being used today in production. We're not great at investing in new technology in the UK, but you want the product to last. It's still a substantial investment. So this will give you some idea on what we mean by timeline programming. So on the left, you can see what's large view is going on the tablet. So here's an icon for opening and closing the gripper. She's now going to move the slider down to move down in Z. Now, she could grab the robot and move it down simply, but by doing that, it means it's moving down vertically in a Cartesian manner. Now she's going to say, let's close the gripper. Now she's going to put in a pause, just to make sure that it's gripped the product for just half a second. Move back up vertically in Z. Now she pulls in the dead man button, moves it across to a new position, safe above the place position. Teach the position. And then use the slider to move down in Z. Teach the position. Now what she's going to do is open the gripper. Now just to show off, she's going to do a copy and paste on the time. So with any of those icons, any of those moves, she could do a copy and paste because it's the same thing. So it's a very familiar technology to what you're using when you're programming a computer, programming in Microsoft or anything else. Now if you look in the top of the screen on the left, you'll see the simulation run through in real time, well, to see if everything is safe and it's doing exactly what she was expecting, and it is. And by the way, this was quite an early video that was made here. You can import a CAD model, so you could have your whole cell in there, so if there was guarding, a table, other equipment in there, you could actually see what was in there as well, rather than just seeing the robot move around. So a very simple pick and place. So this is another nice example. This was shown recently at the EMO exhibition in Germany. So not running, not tightening or bolt tightening in this case. So what are the drivers for this? Health and safety. Imagine having that. That can go torque up to 200 Newton meters with the robot, but you imagine somebody leaning over something into the middle of a component or a car body. The force on the arm, the force on the back is not really great to be doing hour after hour. So you've got reaching and stretching. It's flexible because you can reapply it to different products. You can use a different size socket on there, quickly pick it up to program the other product, to tighten up on another product. And also, so what I want to talk about a little bit more is traceability and quality. If a person's doing that, and who's to say that they've done the right number of bolts to the right torque, they didn't go over one and did two twice and they've left one out. That end cylinder head then goes out into a company, there's a problem because something wasn't torqued up correctly, they've got warranty issues, quality, and recall is very, very expensive. So how's it programmed? Again, there's a little bit more sophisticated on the timeline programming here because you can see what we do is we nest it. But these are all the commands very simply for starting and stopping the nut runner. The time for dwelling to make sure it's done, the signal back from nut runner, and make sure that you've got everything right, and then get a feedback on it. So on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see where the yellow arrow is. If you click on that button, then what you get on the display is a record of what's going on with the nut tightening. So you can see in the bottom of that screen now, that video running, this is the same demonstration. It's showing you what point they're at in the timeline, and it's showing you the results. I'll show you on a better screen next. So that's what you get. What that's doing there is it's showing the results. The ones in green are successful, the ones yellow are within a tolerance, and the red ones failed for whatever reason. So very easy to see on a screen whether it's a failed tighten or not, and then you can look at manual intervention. So the good thing about what we're talking about here is ZDT, zero downtime. It's FANUC software, and the great thing about it is that it can be pulled in to one PC system and analyse everything. So it's not just the health of your robot, but also the quality of your application. So on the left you can see when, which part, which nut. So it gives you the data on the product. And then the KPIs, what was the load torque, the tightening torque, the load check, sorry, and the rotation angle. So that's giving you the data on the robot. Is the robot being overloaded? Is it a problem with of any of the torques on the joints? And then lastly, is it completed? Was the position, the depth right, and the rotation speed? So, and also you could be able to predict long-term patterns with that. How can we do this? We can do it with the larger CRX robots because they're more industrial. We've got a lot stronger wrist on there, and there's force sensors in the arm as well. And the dedicated timeline programming. So the wrist loads and everything are monitored by ZDT. This is an option, but it's not an expensive option. You can see in the picture down there, maybe you can't see it, it's a 16mm bolt torqued up to 200 Newton meters. Of course, you could also use a vision system. By using a vision system to find the part and make sure it's there, you can reduce down on your fixturing costs as well. Another application, palletizing. It's dull and repetitive, reaching and stretching. Staff shortages. I was talking to a food manufacturing company just over 12 months ago. They had 3 manufacturing sites in the UK, and they said they permanently have 150 vacancies for simple pick and place applications. How do you run a business like that? For people picking up boxes, putting them down, picking up product, putting them in boxes. So here we're showing palletizing and depalletizing used with 3D vision system. Mounted on the end of the arm. So trends, again, within the palletizing type of market, increased payload, reduce cycle times, increase reach, which means that you don't now have to put a smaller Cobot onto a lift unit, which is not so good for health and safety, and also adds complexity and cost to the system. Integrated vision, give you more accurate pick and place positions. Specific software for palletizing. So you don't have to do a programming line by line. It'll configure a pattern for you with a slip sheet and 1 conveyor or 2 conveyors coming in and out, whichever it is. And that can come from FANUC. That can also come from other of our eco suppliers like there's OnRobot, and there's several others that do this as well now. It doesn't have to be FANUC software. Elimination and singularity. So singularity is where, the people who don't know, is when 2 axes are in exactly the same line. The robot either has to drive through it and it slows it down, and it can actually be dangerous because sometimes it can go in a direction where you're not sure. We now have software to eliminate that by making the robot sort of 5 axis rather than 6 axis. So we eliminate the chance of singularity, which gives us greater reach and also faster cycle times because we don't have to drive through it. And also internal harnesses. When you look at that picture there, you don't see cables on the outside for vacuums and grippers and that sort of thing. They're all run through the arm. So less chance of snagging, less chance of downtime because of the year-end effector gripper on the end, because everything's run through the arm, it's nice and safe and hidden away. Right, into the last application, welding. Welding was a bit of a shock for us, really, when we first started with cobots, because welding is not really a natural cobot application, because you've got sparks, you've got arcs, and all sorts of other things. But the reason why it's so popular, and is really popular to arc weld with the cobot, is that it's simple to program. There's a lack of welders out there. So with a technician that understands the setup of a weld, then they need to learn the programming of the robot, which is nice and simple. And then, again, this will walk you through all of these different things like crater fill, wire stick. It's not just a matter of starting an arc and finishing an arc. There's quite a bit more to it. FANUC have got many years' experience with arc welding software, and it's just been applied, really, to the CRX. Again, ZDT, what can this do for you? It can help you understand when there's unstable welds. It can improve your quality, reduce the number of scrap parts. So it gives you this nice report of where the weld is good or where it's failed. And the great thing about ZDT as well is that you can bring in the information from a lot of different welding sources. So you've got Kempe, as on the side weld cell outside. There's Lincoln, Fronius, and lots of other manufacturers, all come into one place, all one dashboard for you to see what's going on. Because it might be that one weld source manufacturer makes something that somebody else doesn't, and you need to capture that data. Now, we have to apply the Cobot to something. That, as I said, otherwise just wiggles around and wastes your time and electricity. So these are just some of the ecosystem companies that work with us. Zimmer, who are here today, OnRobot, who are here today. Third Dimension, they do scanning of things like gap and flush, so simple non-contact inspection systems. G4Tech from Austria that do AGVs mounted with a Cobot, so it can move trays of parts around between CNC machines, and designed for industrial type environments as well, not just medical and clean type environments. Yeah, so they're there and they're growing, and it's really important for us because the whole philosophy for us manufacturing and develop the Cobots further is to make it easy for end customers to be able to do something with it and program it. And that's me. Any questions? I've slightly overrun.
Does anyone have any questions for Paul? No? Well, thank you very much.
I did a good job then.
Just so you know, we are, obviously, we're here, but we are going live on LinkedIn, FANUC websites, our website, the app, YouTube. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, please do send them in. It's all about being interactive. After this, we do have a podcast. We've got another question. Thank you. We've got a podcast. If we can get a microphone over to this gentleman, because we do have a question. We have a podcast. And also, if you aren't here, we are doing some video tours of the whole event, so there's nothing that you're going to miss out on. But we do have a question, so from the floor. Thank you.
And I think this gentleman also had a question.
Ah.
Right. I was going to ask, for people working in these industries where they might be getting placed, how would you recommend they go about upskilling, get more involved with this technology?
Upskilling of your workforce to start to use automation.
As an employee, so for example, I work in construction, and some of the tasks might be.
We're losing the signal on the microphone.
Yeah.
Could you hear what I asked?
Yeah, do it again. If you don't.
So, for example, I work in construction, and a lot of those tasks might become amenable to automation.
Yeah.
So it would be incumbent that at some point I would train, gain more skills, perhaps more technological skills. What would you recommend to a person in those circumstances? I think there might be a few of them.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's very important if you're going to do that is to try and find somebody who could be a champion for it, somebody that's got the acumen or the desire to do it. I've seen automation in places fail where people have driven forklift trucks into cells to make sure that they don't work because they see it as somebody taking away somebody's job or something like that. But on the other hand, I've seen it work where somebody has said, right, I really want, I'm really into this. This is, I see this as a benefit. This is great for me. This is great for my future. This is great for the company. I'm rewarded by having knowledge of this technology, and they absolutely thrive on it. So look for a champion. There are training courses in FANUC UK, for instance. You can come and do a course for a week. Sometimes there's appreciation courses. There's different levels. Some are like for a few days. But if you've got that right person to really champion it, come and talk to them. Come and talk to somebody like FANUC and see about training. But also, I would talk to a partner of FANUC that we can actually put something together for you. I mean, generally, end customers, for larger companies, they will tend to, in some cases, do their own automation, but quite often they'll still buy it from a system integrator that buys a robot from FANUC, a gripper from here, a part from there, to pull the whole thing together. But cobots are a great way to start because they're safer, they're lower cost. And also behind the programming of what you said, the timeline there, is that right code? That's writes code as well. That writes TP code, FANUC TP code. So you can go to any depth that you want if you really want to get a lot more advanced. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Okay. Just had two quick questions to clarify something. So you mentioned the developing cobots have got greater reach, and that would be safer than having robot lifts. Is that robot lift as in an extra axis vertically?
Yes.
And so what would make a greater reach cobot safer than that?
One of the problems is that nobody has on the market a collaborative auxiliary axis. So we have to put a motor on the lift unit. So if that's your robot, it goes on the lift and goes up and down. So on the 6 axes of the robot, they're all collaborative. So if you touch it, it will stop. The motor that drives up and down isn't. So what happens if it's coming down and there's somebody there with their hand there? It's not going to sense it necessarily. There's ways and tricks around it, but it's, So if you only put it in a lift or a track, if you can't get the reach, why would you do it? Otherwise, it's extra money and extra cost. With a larger reach robot, you don't need that necessarily. Yeah. So unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have an auxiliary axis that's collaborative, and when you touch the auxiliary axis, it stops. That's the answer.
Thank you. Second question was, you mentioned welding applications.
Yes.
So people use cobots for that because it's the ease of use, ease of programming. Do those cobots applications still need the cages then if welding applications need screens for the...
Do they what, sorry?
But does welding applications, do they still need caging and fencing to safe?
Yes, they still need to. Yeah, but when you think about it, you still need exactly the same thing when you're manual welding. You can't weld in the middle of a shop where there's sparks, and you kind of need to make it safe if it's next to a gangway of somebody walking past and that sort of thing. So if you touch the robot, it will still stop. There's no more forces involved with that, but obviously you need to take into account that you are welding and you've got a tip on something that could still be very hot as well. So you need to take that into account. Yeah, but not necessarily hard guarding. But you need something to make sure that people are not in the area. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So next up, thank you very much, Paul. So a big round of applause to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is one of my favourite parts of the whole event, and it's where we have a debate. We all love a bit of a heated discussion, and this is your chance to get interactive. Obviously, when you're here, or of course, if you're watching online, please do send those questions in because they come straight through to the screen, and the team will answer the questions. We have had a flurry of people coming in and out. So I'd like to welcome to the stage, because this is quite an interesting one, because this is all about busting the automation myths. So some interesting facts before we begin. The UK, the 6th largest economy, 8th largest manufacturing nation, so that's up from 9th. But despite this, we still have concerns, and we've discussed this morning, about labour shortages and low productivity rates. So here to discuss this topic, we have got Carl Patrick from FANUC, Gary Herbert from Rockwell Automation, Peter Williamson from PPMA, and Martin Kidman from SICK, and of course we've got Paul Richards from FANUC as well. So, yeah, take it away, gentlemen.
So
if you'd each like to introduce yourself, we can
yeah,
go from there.
so I'm Carl Patrick. I'm in charge of the systems business in FANUC UK. And if I'd ask the other guys on the panel to introduce themselves and say a little bit about themselves.
Hi, I'm Martin Kidman and I work for SICK and I cover South and West Europe for all of our safety solutions, and I also work on the BSI developing safety standards in robots and AGVs and AMRs.
Hi, I'm Peter Williamson. I'm CEO of PPMA. It's a group of associations that includes BARA, so I'm here on behalf of BARA today.
Morning, everybody. My name's Gary Herbert. I work for a company called Rockwell Automation. I'm a sales leader, but our team looks after automotive infrastructure, transport throughout Northern Europe.
Paul, I know that we've already had the introduction. So, firstly, thank everyone for coming, and thanks everyone for watching online. First to the panel, as we're aware, there's a lot of myths associated with automating an existing process. From each of the prospective opinions and different parts of the trade, what are the myths that you encounter most frequent?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take one. We've got a few different views on it. I think the biggest one, the one that stands out, is that we're not really doing anything new. Automation started possibly 200 years ago in the Industrial Revolution. We're already up to sort of Industry 4.0. Annoyingly, some people are still going for 5.0. I'm not sure we conquered 4 yet. We've had production, Henry Ford, with production lines in the early 20th century. We ourselves invented a programmable controller in the mid-late 60s. By the year 2000, we'd sold 1 million of them. Now we're in 2023. If you haven't grasped that automation's a benefit to you by now, it's really about time you got on board with it.
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest myths I think that we see is that the one that robots take jobs. I think when you look at the most highly automated nations around the world, they also have extremely high levels of employment. And I think within the UK, we really need to grasp the fact that robots actually support and augment existing jobs. Most of the jobs that you should get a robot to do are the dull, dirty, dangerous, and you take them away from the humans and give the humans the opportunity to do tasks and roles that are far more enjoyable, far more interesting, and hopefully better paid. And I think, the fact that people think that robots are actually taking jobs away from them is unfortunately a myth, and it's one that is difficult to overcome.
Yeah, it was mentioned in Tom's speech earlier on this morning that obviously we don't want to take people's jobs, but we don't want them doing dull, dirty, dangerous tasks either. And it's identifying the bottlenecks of what is that dangerous task. Let's automate that and then see where the bottleneck then becomes, and then we can look at increasing our journey. Gary?
Yeah, I mean, talking about safety, I travel the UK looking at different applications, and there's a number of myths. I'd say some of them are, one, it's changing slightly, collaborative robots are safe. That's a myth. But on the upside of that, I'd say that safety is complex is also a myth as well. There are a lot of safety consultants that like to quote standards and quote new collaborative robot standards. And I mean, a new application with collaborative robots is still a robot application. So you'd approach it in the same way, risk assessment, risk reduction. And I'd say myths around safety in general.
Now, this would be a really good one for Paul now, mentioning the collaborative robots. So what would your response be to that myth that it's either really safe or it's an industrial and it's dangerous and needs to be fully guarded?
Yeah, there is a bit of a... It can get a little bit confusing, I think, when we're looking at comparison between an industrial robot system and a Cobot system. An industrial robot system tends to be bought from somebody who's built an industrial robot system. The end customer doesn't really have to worry too much about programming it. They have to worry if they're going to be buying a Cobot and reprogramming that Cobot because they're doing a different job with it every week, every day, every month, or whatever. So there's two different areas really, and you know very well, as long as you bought from a good source, that your industrial robot system is going to be risk assessed, is safe, And programming is kind of as simple as press a button to start, stop, what happens if there's a recovery function and that sort of thing. So it's a completely different sort of area. So I think for the first time with Cobot, the end customer has to take some responsibility. They have to take responsibility for the risk assessment and analysis of what they're doing with that Cobot application. Because when you take the Cobot out of the box, it's CE marked, and it's quite safe as long as you're not doing anything silly or taking out of the settings to make it dangerous. But as soon as you apply it to something, then all of a sudden it becomes a system, and then it needs to have some sort of risk assessment and analysis on it. So you're right. I mean, I think we need to get across that. And one of my frustrations is sometimes is that customers aren't always aware of what their responsibilities are with a Cobot to make it safe and to make sure that there's not going to hurt anybody within the environment. But there are answers out there. The software's there, the product's there, the ecosystem you see out there. A lot of these products are designed to be safe. There's rounded corners on and that sort of thing. So it's all being taken care of. It's still generally quite a new industry and a new product that we're having to develop and evolve with as well.
I tend to upset robot manufacturers when I don't use the word Cobot because actually when you look at the people developing the standards, and I prefer to call them robots designed for collaborative robot applications, because I still see industrial robots also used in collaborative applications as well. And it's just different levels of the application, and you should approach them all the same. Every single robot application is just a new machine. You can't paint them all with the same brush.
Yeah, and later I think we're going to see that it's going to be the term Cobot maybe disappearing. It's a collaborative application. It's an application that we're talking about, not just a Cobot. The Cobot doesn't do anything on its own. It's an application.
I think it's really inherent on the suppliers of the Cobot to be conscious of, or the robot designed for collaborative applications, to be conscious of the potential pitfalls of supplying directly to an end user and making sure that they talk them through that journey a little bit and point them in the right direction of those who can help with ensuring that that installation is safe.
I mean, moving on to another common myth is how complex these things can be to set up, even with a collaborative. People that are using it for possibly machine tool tending, that's my main background. I don't know how to program a robot or a Cobot, but that doesn't have to be true because they're already programming a 3, 4, 5-axis machine tool. So they've already got the inherent skills that are required. It's just in a slightly different platform. And I think there is a bit of a myth about how hard this is going to be. But obviously we've got the training academy here, and there's a lot of training providers out there that can help people achieve that. And if an engineer can program a G-code control system, they can program a robot. That's something else that we come up against. If that's something that you guys find.
Yeah, it's not just program the robot as well. It's the whole system. So we don't have a favourite child. We work with all robot manufacturers, but we have to understand how they're working. And generally, there'll be other things like the safety system, the safety controller, and also the sensors that go with that. And it can become quite complex, but the safety's still the same. What's the task? What's the hazard? What's the risk? And how do we mitigate that?
I think the other thing that comes into it is a lot of end users that are looking to adopt automation tend to look at the tasks and processes that will give them the best initial feedback or the best cost benefit. But actually, if they're new to automation, the best thing for them to do is to actually focus on the jobs that are the easiest to automate. And that perhaps makes them the simplest to automate to start with as well. And they can start their journey by carrying out a reasonably simple task and building their way up to more complex automation as their own people within their business get more and more skilled and more knowledgeable and more used to working around automation equipment.
Yeah, I also, I've seen many times as well, in years ago in talking to end customers, and they'll say, well, what can you automate? What can you automate within my manufacturing facility? And you'll look around and say, well, that can be done, that one. Yeah, that's the most difficult. Let's start with that, because we know if we do that, then everything else will be easy. And it gets difficult, and it can be done, but it's far beyond their budget, and it never happens. So then they move on and say, we looked at automation, it didn't work. Yeah, but if you just started with the simplest and then worked the other direction. But no, if you can conquer that really hard, difficult one, it's like, well, we can put men on the moon. You know, to do this is going to cost you £1 million. There's no way there's £1 million of justification there. But with that one, that's a real simple one to do. That's a real low-hanging fruit. Start with that one. And I've seen it so many times where, for some reason, there's this mentality of, no, start with the most difficult one. And learn, you know, and evolve. And not just cobots, but industrial.
I think that's a great point, because you see so many people not wanting to automate because they look at the complex, complete automation that's possible. And really, it's just about taking that first step, dipping your toe in the water and starting with something small, and you become more comfortable, and then you grow and you start to automate more, and it becomes easier.
Yeah, in a certain environment, a conveyor is automation. And that might be the first step into adopting automation, is just automating the movement of product from point A to point B. And there's definitely a thing about appropriate automation. It's making sure that the automation that you need within your plant, you select the appropriate equipment rather than trying to go too complex or go too far. It's to make sure that, you know, actually that first task where you've got people moving product across the factory, well, let's just automate that. Okay, now that we've done that and we know that we've got a lack of labour in a certain other part of the production process, how do we automate that? And it's taking those steps forward with the appropriate kit.
Yeah, I think what I observe, I'm not at all a software person or an engineer particularly, but I see a drive towards making it more intuitive anyway as we move forward, so that you need skills, but you are driven to get the outcomes you want. And then there's some good points here about possibly silos in automation. We come from a point of view where we don't do robotics, but we do an awful lot of it, and we try and make it. You need skills. You're never really very far from someone who can program a Rockwell PLC, let's be honest. But even so, we're trying to take the data point and share it across the enterprise. You know, we moved on from sort of ladder to incorporate other software tools. So we're trying to capture as many people as possible to make the investment in automation work.
That's a really good point about the skills. I mean, for end users that have never done any forms of automation, we don't expect everybody to know everything straight away. But if you invite us, any of us on the panel, some of our partners that we've got out there in the workshop, we can come and advise you. You know your products better than us, but we might know keys to get the automation up and running by using the existing knowledge you have on your products. So, yeah, if anything from today, please just engage with us and let us consult.
One of the myth busters I'd like to make is that there's customers can get a little bit despondent when they talk about, from Cobot point of view, where they believe that a Cobot is cheaper than an industrial robot, and the reality, it isn't. A Cobot is a more sophisticated product than an industrial robot. The robot itself, the Cobot, is more expensive than most industrial robots, if you compare like for like in size and that sort of thing. But what is cheaper is the overall system. If you've got a simple Cobot system, it should be overall. So the investment should be lower overall. But the actual robot part of it, the Cobot part of it, is very rarely cheaper. It can be if you're not looking at a truly industrial Cobot. But if you're looking at a proper industrial robot, an industrial application suitable for the job, then you'll find that it isn't cheaper. But overall, for your overall investment, it should be, because there's less, probably not a control system, an external control system involved. There's not so much design work. There's not somebody designing control system. All sorts of programming as well. So.
Yeah, shall we open it up to the audience? Any of your myths or preconceptions you'd like qualifying?
Thank you. Hi, panel. We live in an age of everything being connected and industrial Internet of Things. I'm wondering what outcomes you think can be driven from data.
It's a good question, and as we all know, Industry 4 is not going anywhere. Maybe it should be Industry 5, but perhaps not just yet. So with the data collection, I think you might be a good way to...
I'll try. So, yeah, obviously I'm more interested in the application being safe, but with that, we have sensors that are collecting lots of information, and it's taking information about the area, it's feeding back into a machine. Robots are doing the same thing. There's lots of sensors on machines, and I think every man and his dog's trying to push digital at the moment. So there's lots of things that we can look about, trends, big data. At the same time, it's opening up new security threats, for example, cyber security. And I think data will bring a lot of benefits, but we also have to be careful. And the standards are actually changing as well to reflect that. So in the new versions of the standards, hopefully there'll be more guidance on cyber security and maybe AI and augmented reality, etc.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. I sort of know where it comes from. I might say you've maybe got too much data already, and what you need is context around the data, and then to be able to bring forward the valuable data that you need to make real impact on your business and the outcome you're after. But in terms of what you can do, sustainability, energy management, resilience, agility, uptime, controlled downtime, predictive maintenance, it's never ending. But that's why you need the context to make it worthwhile.
I think one of the other things around data is that when you look at manufacturing, is becoming so much more flexible to allow for, as data comes in, you can adjust your production to satisfy trends and satisfy particular demands from customers. And I think automation, historically, people have got a perception that it's very fixed, it's for high volume, high output manufacturing. And actually automation is becoming much more modular. I mean, the Cobot's a prime example of that. So actually you can build automation systems that can react quite quickly to customer demand, but that's very much key on how you gather and develop that data and how you utilise it, and making sure that your system has that flexibility built into it.
I think it raises another question around automation and the benefit of automation and maybe a myth around it. What you're talking about there as a data scientist, or the involvement of data scientists, that's a job we didn't have before. And that's a very skilled role in manufacturing, potentially. So with no automation, you wouldn't drive the need for that level of responsibility and accountability in a business. So
I think that's a really good point about the data scientist, because we have our own Industry 4 machine monitoring software called MT-Link-I, and that can obviously give you spindle up time, overall effectiveness, but it can pull so much more data in. So if you did want to use that, you perhaps do want to have someone that's going to be able to correlate that data into something meaningful. So that it's a myth, but you can have as much data as you like, but you need to do something practical with it. Yeah. Any other questions?
I think definitely in this industry, there seems to be this mentality of if it's not broke, don't fix it. So what would you say to those people? Because we spoke a lot on this discussion about people that have trialled automation before and it's not worked, or people who are already looking into it. I think we need to go that step back and address it for those people that are still quite cautious to go for it, but mainly because it's already working, they're already hitting their targets. What would you say to those people?
Personally, I would say it's an ever-competitive marketplace, and we need to stay and remain competitive to maintain our place on the world stage. So it's not necessarily that it didn't work for you previously, but what can it do for you now? So I would say to engage with us, any of us on the panel, any of our partners, present the challenge, give the historical data as to why something maybe didn't work previously, and then with that knowledge on board, we can change and tailor the response to address the needs required. Anyone else?
I guess you're talking about processes, but if you look at a hardware point of view, I see so much legacy equipment in the field, and there'll be systems that have been running for 20, 30 years. I've even seen IO-Link systems from the 90s. People think it's new, but it's not. And often you see kind of old Rockwell, Siemens, PLCs that they've got no spares for, it's obsolete. So it's really about risk, and it's not just thinking about the now, it's what if that did fail in the future? What impact would that have on my business? and what is the investment to reduce that risk, but also ensure that we can actually, be more profitable in the future as well. So what I'd say is really keep in touch with your suppliers, your manufacturers, and keep abreast of what's new, but also more importantly, what's about to become obsolete, and work out a plan to migrate from that.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the discussion, the topic on it, because from a sales point of view, we've got a lot of old platforms out there that have been supported, as you say, for a number of years. People didn't invest because their kit was obsolete. They didn't spend money on it. So we slightly changed the discussion to talk about modernisation of the system and how you can improve it, what benefit you can get from it, rather than the fact that it is going to be a repairable asset, you might have downtime. It's what benefit have you got by another investment or a step forward into a new layer of automation. But it's a really good topic to have.
I think just one thing to add to that, I think with this, we talk about skill shortage. Legacy equipment is very, very difficult for suppliers of legacy equipment to maintain and support. Talking, so from a PPMA perspective, we've got lots of members who supply special purpose equipment. And it's a real drain on their resources having to constantly go back and support end users with old equipment that is obsolete because they haven't invested in maintaining it. And actually these manufacturers, OEMs of equipment, they don't really want to be doing that because they don't have the resources to do it, and they want to be focusing on developing and driving new machinery. So if you don't keep your machinery up to date and it becomes obsolete, you'll find that actually there will become a point where it won't be supported anymore.
Just on that as well, on the other side of things, people investing in new kit and new systems, I think customers are becoming a little bit more savvy, because when the microchip shortage happened, suddenly they had this kit, they couldn't buy it off a supplier, but they couldn't just buy replacements because they were tied in to this new system. So that's why it's important to look at the platforms that you're sitting on. So maybe based on an Ethernet IP or Profinet platform, something that you can protect yourself from risk in the future as well.
I think there's 2 points here really. One about I've in my sales role, I remember once getting an inquiry from somebody that said they needed a new robot because the FANUC robot was starting to get a little bit unreliable. So I asked the question about it, and they said, yeah, well, I bought it, it was 15 years old. I bought it second hand. How long have you run it for? Oh, about 10 years. Okay. Have you had it serviced? No, nothing. So 25 years. FANUC, I'll put my sales cap on, FANUC will support the product for the life cycle. So as long as it's in service, we have products in FANUC because we manufacture 80-90% of our critical components. They keep everything on stock. So the promise from FANUC is that it will be supported for life. And the stock, I've been to Japan and they'll say this is from 1983, and when this machine in Japan dies, then we can get rid of the stock on this. They're having to train people now because they've been there so long, they have to train them and video them to know how to maintain these machines because there's so few of them around and the skills are going because they're old machines that aren't there anymore. That's one thing. Secondly, I'll talk about, why should you invest? Why should you update? Look at the IFR figures, the International Federation of Robotics, and look at the country that's investing the most in robotics and automation, and it's China. We all know China have a real high salary basis, just like Switzerland. Not. Why are they investing in so many robots? If we want to be serious and compete in the manufacturing environment, we have to look at what these other countries do. They're not doing this for no reason. They're investing very, very heavily, and we're not seeing the same results in Europe, certainly not in the UK. We're falling well behind. How are we going to compete? How are we going to compete with China? And we have India up and coming. Then there's going to be Africa. Then where's it going to end?
Yeah. I think there was another question on this one.
Yeah, I've been asked to stand up, by the way. There's a perception, we just heard, IO-Link's been around since the 90s, but it's still being kind of touted as the hot new thing. Do you think that perception of robots and automation being novel might actually be hurting adoption because people aren't ready to take on something new that they think is innovative, and therefore they're going to be kind of reinventing something from scratch? People are waiting for it to become commonplace, which in a lot of industries it already is, before actually taking on that new technology.
That's a really good question, actually, because robots have been around for longer than me, I would argue. And yeah, there's waiting for the person next door to do it, to learn off him, when everybody's here and we can offer that assistance now. So I do think it is quite hurtful, the perception of it being really complicated to adopt, but there's a lot of people doing it now. So we do systems off our own back. We've got our machine tool partners that are doing systems, direct integration. So really, there's enough resources out there for that not to be an issue. Just ask, and you will get the answers for your particular niche.
I don't think that's a worldwide perception. I think it's a UK perception.
Yes.
I think if you look globally, if you look at SMEs in the UK, I think they're very, very reluctant to adopt automation for all the reasons we talked about earlier. If you go to other places in Europe which are more automated, and if you start up a small business, you're thinking about how you automate your production as a small business. In the UK, you start your business up, you grow it, you develop a product, and then you think, oh, maybe I should automate this, and you look around and it becomes more complicated because automation wasn't considered at the outset of the business. So I think it's trying to change those perceptions and so make us think more along the lines of other advanced manufacturing nations. And I think there's another thing. I mean, I don't think the government necessarily helps us particularly. They talk about advanced manufacturing as advanced technologies of what's being produced, but actually, as the UK needs to adopt advanced manufacturing in its processes, and that goes right the way down to small businesses. You could be making something as simple as a watering can or a wheelbarrow, but if you automate it, you're more efficient, you're more effective. And the technology is definitely there for you to do that, even as a small business.
I think we suffer in the UK because we are actually such a safe country. When we first joined the EU, before we left again, in the 70s, we had the Health and Safety at Work Act, and actually the UK were a major part of the development of safety in Europe. And I think what's happening, we're trying to break down these barriers, literally. End users used to go to a company, they'd buy a robot cell, it'd be in a cage, locked away, interlocks, and the end user didn't really have to worry too much about it. They'd maybe do a risk assessment under PUA 98 to make sure it's okay, but now they're getting this new equipment in with no fences, with robots that are allowed to redeploy, and consultants are talking about you have to re-verify it, you have to revalidate it, and they're like, well, I've not had to worry about this before. So it's kind of a cultural thing, I think, in the UK, that actually because we're so safety conscious and we're worried about getting sued, which most people on our courses say, how do I stop myself getting sued? Well, if somebody gets hurt, you will get sued, regardless of how competent you are. I think it's about breaking down that misconception that end users can't take the safety on themselves, and be prepared to talk to the suppliers, to people who can help you with risk assessment and design these new applications that can be safe. And there's lots of guidance and lots of advice and lots of examples from around the world which demonstrate that it can improve profitability, but also actually, we call it creating safe productivity. I hope that's answered the question.
I think if I take your question and then think about it from a digital standpoint, so we work in automotive, which is a great industry to work in. And believe it or not, at the moment, we're going through a really disruptive phase with EV and battery and everything that's coming with it. Now, we work with a few EV startups. They lead with digital. There is no question that a new business isn't going to deploy every part of advantage it can get. And that advantage is all around digital in the implementation and the context around whatever data, what you can do to make you more agile, get your time to market quicker, So it's maybe there's two sides to this question a little bit in terms of our existing customers that will show you, here's a machine that's 30 years old, and then the digital guy, the new EV startup, is going to go, here's my innovation, and this is how I'm going to put it into play. So it's a great industry to work in automotive at the moment because we're seeing both sides of that question.
I think also that you have to deal and think about it differently in markets like pharmaceutical, medical, food industry compared to automotive. When you're dealing with the automotive industry, the chances are you're dealing with an engineer, production engineer, somebody that understands automation, they understand cycle times, throughputs. When you start dealing with a pharmaceutical company or a food company, the people in charge of a food company understand additives, getting product in, mixing it, shelf life, distribution to the supermarket or wherever the product's going to. And they have a different level of expertise. When you're talking to automotive and tier one companies, you're dealing with engineers, and they will design and tell you exactly what they want, down to the code, the safety device, the robot, the end effectors, and everything. And the food industry, for instance, just don't really have a clue. The closest you get to an engineer quite often is a maintenance engineer, and all they're interested in doing is keeping that line running and keeping the company profitable and not going down. And we kind of have to deal with them in a different way. There's no point in talking to those companies. I think somebody said earlier on about the bits and bytes of this. They don't care. They want to see, I don't care what's in there, something goes in and something comes out with the right result of what I want, and how much is that going to cost? You know, I think we were talking about websites and things when Tom's right. So, yeah, and I think there are a lot. I don't know. You find it a lot different to deal with companies like that, and that's where, you know, the automotive sector and tier one is pretty well automated, but there's still a massive potential in these other industries. You know, pharmaceutical, for instance, where they've got people going into clean rooms, they're bringing in potential contamination, and you know, then they've the same with the food sector as well, and difficult to get labour because of the environment and whatever. But in these industries, they tend to buy a bit of automation there and a bit of automation there, and it doesn't join up. It goes down onto a lazy Susan. They've got somebody picking up and putting it into a box or something. And
I've seen it. So I've been to sites, pharmaceutical, and it is engineers keeping it running. Yeah. And they've got machines 30, 40 years old that have been maintained by, you know, fathers and the sons over the 20, 30 years. And it's a different conversation with a different person. It's not the maintenance guy. It's sometimes you have to speak to the money men about, you know, the potential cost that you're going to save and how much you're going to make.
But they don't want to talk on a component level.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, and you've got to link that technical conversation with someone who's more interested about counting the beans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any more questions from the audience?
Yeah, just following on from what you were saying about dealing with perhaps smaller SMEs or people that have had maybe one or two sort of automation solutions that have been operating for quite a long time. Do you find maybe that their perceptions of the myths around automation, do you think sometimes they think maybe automation is what it used to be rather than what it is now, so it's quite rigid, it's inflexible, if our product changes or our lines change, the automation won't be able to keep up with it, it's got a big footprint, it's got to have a big cage around it. Was actually lots of the solutions today aren't like that, they're very flexible, aren't they? Do you find that's a bit of a disconnect?
Yeah, it depends where you go. So if you go to some of these pharmaceutical places in the fields in the middle of nowhere, you generally see that the maintenance guys, they go to work every day, 5 days a week. They're not really going to exhibitions and events, and they're not seeing new automation. So it tends to be new facilities, greenfields, and it can be a case of automation is very rigid, like the Charlie Chaplin film. But when you get out there and you see these new exciting applications, you tend to see companies taking on one or two and then seeing the impact and how well it's working, and then they slowly grow, as you said before. Start slowly and then build it up. But it can be, and I think in the standards world, you have what we call Type C standards, and that tells you how to make a particular machine safe. So everybody uses that C standard and carries on making that particular machine, when actually there might be other ways of doing that by incorporating a robot system or a collaborative robot. Whether it's just habit or willingness to move into a newer... you need to be brave, I think, as well sometimes. It's about managing that risk.
Yeah, I think in years gone by, a robot cell would have been specified and designed around a single product in mind, but there is a lot of products on the market now that are fully parametric. So within certain parameters, it will make any component, and as they're developing, and we have some of them here today, they're opening a lot of doors to a lot of users. But again, having these people that are maybe the decision makers getting out there to events like this just to see what's available was really important.
I think what Paul was saying earlier about SMEs gaining control of their automation as well. I think, you look at it and you think it's a big fixed cell and it's designed to do a specific job. Actually, SMEs generally tend to come from small, an individual with a great idea is quite technical in themselves. And actually if you understand your own process, you take the right technology that's available now through automation, you actually gain control of that process and you can apply that automation to your process rather than, I think, historically you might have been a bit dictated to by what the automation could deliver for you, rather than now the other way around, the process controls the automation.
I think that's why we love case studies as a supplier. And I sit on Barra as well, and to get robots moving, case studies are great. Sometimes the users don't want to give case studies because they're doing really well, and they don't want the competition to do well as well. But as a supplier, we work with our customers, so Mills CNC, they're utilising a fantastic solution with a FANUC robot, some 6 scanners, they're implementing some collaborative robot methods, and it's a great case study to show that actually these machine tending solutions can be really profitable, and you can use some fantastic solutions like FANUC and SICK that to help you sort of improve your processes.
Yeah, I think we need to take that on board as manufacturers as well, that we need to really lever on the value we bring to SMEs and help them understand the benefit, because the cost to deploy might be a little bit greater for them if they haven't got a whole other business to leverage against. So we need to find a way, I think, to get our messages out there. We do try. We've got different partners out in the field. We've got a whole raft of very skilled people out there that take the message. But I think understanding the value and collecting those use cases is the onus on us. But you're right, how we communicate that out to a raft of SMEs is probably the challenge.
Any more audience questions?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think it's around about lunchtime now as well. I think it's about 12:30. Everyone always gets excited by lunch, so that's going to be happening shortly. I'd like to thank all of you on the panel here. Thank you everyone for getting involved. If you are watching online, then at around 1 o'clock we're going to have a podcast. So if anyone here wants to get involved in the podcast, or if anyone wants their voice heard from the audience, then please speak to one of the team members and we'll get you talking about all of these topics as well in your perspectives. And then at 2 o'clock, if you're watching online, we're going to take you on a tour around all of the system partners and the exhibition hall, so you're not going to miss any of it. So from me, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Everyone, enjoy your afternoon, and a big thank you to all of you on the panel. So, thank you.
Well, hello and welcome to the MTDCNC podcast here at FANUC UK at the FANUC Live event. As you can see, I'm joined by some guests and we're going to take a deep dive on this occasion. It's all about automation. Just some quick introductions. Carlos?
My name is Carlo. I work for Solent Automation and I'm CTO there.
Afternoon,
okay.
Everybody. My
Stuart?
name's Stuart Whitehead. I'm the founder of Jefferson and the co-founder of Factory Now with MTDCNC.
And Dan?
My name's Dan Fisher. I'm Partner Sales Manager for FANUC UK.
Okay, before we start this, 2 o'clock we're going to be doing a tour all around the partners here at FANUC. There's a lot to be going around, but Rowan will be taking a tour around some of the valued partners here from FANUC. But before then, I want to talk about automation. To start with, let's maybe talk about some of the trends, what we're seeing here in the UK. And Stuart, if you don't mind, we'll start with you. Obviously, you were on the stage slightly earlier. For the people that didn't see that, give us a quick overview.
Yeah, really interesting panel discussion hosted by Tom, and talking about what the barriers really to automation. While the UK is perceived to be a low adopter of automation compared to European countries in the Far East and so forth, people were talking about skill shortages, people were talking about cost, or people were talking about habits really of wanting to bring in temporary labour rather than purchase or or hire robots. So there's quite a mixed view really in the panel in terms of what the solutions are. And the other one was STEM engagement in terms of how do we get the message across that UK manufacturing and engineering is buoyant, it's an attractive sector to look at, to work in. So yeah, very interesting conversation, and not sure exactly how many people, but probably around about 60 or 70, so very well populated and very popular.
Yeah, it's interesting, like you say, there's no seats left, was there? And there was standing at the back as well, so very well attended. Dan, what are you seeing at the moment in terms of the adoption? I feel like doing our travels is getting better, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think the education around automation is better and the best it's ever been. Events like this kind of highlight maybe what automation can bring to your company, and actually that's quite often the relatively low cost it can give you benefits. I mean, in terms of trends, you're always going to be at a stage where we're kind of in that technology market where potentially the market can be capped by the products that are in it, and we're now seeing collaborative robots with higher payloads, which kind of lends itself really well to kind of palletising applications. Without the use sometimes in the correct application, let's put that disclaimer out there, without the use of guarding, etc. And also, for another example of technology moving on, where it's kind of now we're seeing a trend kind of adopting those products is dual encoded robots. We have secondary encoded robots now, which are high accuracy, which we now see in the aerospace industry kind of adopt more automation than it probably ever has.
Yeah, so just on the collaborative robots, it's a really good point actually. We've recently been to the EMO trade show in Germany, and we saw loads of FANUC collaborative robots. And I do genuinely think, certainly for machine tending, having that longer reach, I think it's 2.2 metres now with a 30 kg payload, that's a game changer, right?
Yes, yeah, I mean, we'd often find that customers would have liked to have gone for a collaborative application that ended up having to go for an industrial robot because they needed the 30 kilos or because they needed the reach. So we are opening that kind of horizon up. But what it also is doing is it's bringing through customers that potentially are also not collaborative customers, that are actually industrial customers, but they're having the 30 kilo kind of, even having the robot marketed in the way it's marketed, it attracts potential customers that we may not have been able to reach for 3, 4, 5 years. It's kind of brought on their automation journey a bit quicker.
And what applications are we seeing with collaborative robots? I've mentioned machine tending, but I know there's a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, it's a tough question with a very, very broad answer. But as a rule, anything that doesn't require really high speed. So palletising is a really good one. Kind of end-of-line packaging systems can be really good. But of course, you have to bear in mind that they don't run at the speeds that an industrial robot does. So that's where you kind of see in your crossover, then you're stepping into industrial robots.
Mm-hmm. And Carlo, your company, Solent, you've got well, to start with, tell us a little bit about the company, and then we'll talk about the business model after. But if you can just a little overview of the company and where you fit within this huge automation sector.
So Solent Automation is a company focused on SMEs, where we offer a standard solution which makes our two palletizers, Solpal Mini and Solpal 2.0. Mini version is designed around lack of space on the factory floor, so it can fit every single factory without any problem. Solpal 2.0 is a solution where we need to keep up with high speed of production, which can go up to 30 pieces per minute, which we need to take few boxes at a time. But that's also a good point, because then we managed to create a palletizer which can keep up with high speed and which makes flexible to basically every company's needs.
It's an interesting solution, and I must say today is the first day of 3 days, so if you can get to Anstey Park here in Coventry, I do recommend coming to see the FANUC Open House. If not, obviously watch it online. In terms of the palletisation, that's one thing, but you've got this unique business model you told me about earlier. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yes, we noticed that currently there is shortage of labor, and some companies are really getting hard time to get a loan, or some because of business strategy they don't want to. So we offer short-term or long-term rental of our palletizers, which you pay per hour depending on how many hours you are using through the week.
So almost like flexible labour, right? So it's
It is, yeah.
I need an operator for a week, but in your case, I need a robot for a week. But I guess, without knowing the answer to this question, I'm guessing they never come back, because once you start using robotics, you understand you need them within your business.
Yes, our shortest contract is 6 months, and the longest 2 years. So yeah, they can also purchase on the end of the lease. They can decide to purchase the palletizer, which also makes sense for them. But for us, we want to make robotics palletizer more used on British factories.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's almost like the Rolls-Royce servitization model, Stuart, where they're paid for every flight or every mile or whatever. Similar idea.
Absolutely, and that's where the revenue's been. And I remember going to Cranfield a few years ago, and they were explaining this model, how it's going to be rolled out really, and how it's going to be adopted, even with car ownership. You know, that is going to be the model moving forward. And it's interesting with with your concepts and your route to market. One of the questions this morning was a gentleman was asking. He owns a textiles company, very, very keen, adamant he wants to reshore, but he's very concerned really in terms of how he would do that, and he's never really gone down the automation route, wants to, but doesn't know what kind of commitment would be involved in that. And I think that kind of, pay-per-hour type concept would be most appealing. So I'll certainly pass on your details anyway, and because he was talking to Tom and a couple of the other guests here this morning, and so it's great that he wants to reshore, but that seems to be the only thing that's holding him back. And the availability of labour, as you said earlier, it's become even more acute, and so hopefully that will prompt people to look at other production techniques and processes.
Yes, because we have we have solution that is already designed, and we only need to program certain pallet configurations. We can palletize bags, trays, and boxes. So if any company wants to see how that would work, just send us pallet configurations. We program everything at our site and deliver a fully functional machine. From installation point of view, it's going to take half a day.
Oh, really impressive, and our commission is very low as well with the referral, so you'll be fine.
Yeah. And Dan, you cover many system integrators, including your good partners here at Solvent Automation. What are the trends you see in the industry? Is this what we discussed? Is that something you'll see more and more of, or rentals and leasing? Because I know, going back, probably not FANUC Live last one, but certainly the one before that, financing was a big issue. Finance companies didn't want to finance robots. Is that improving?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, selling to integrators, we don't necessarily get involved with the finance so much. But one thing I would like to touch on here with the Solent with the Solent palletizing system and just the money around it. I mean, Carla, if you wouldn't mind opening up that leaflet, I think you can rent this palletizing system from £10.50 an hour. That's a relative figure to people, to staff. That's a relative figure to everyone.
Below minimum wage now, isn't it?
It's brilliant. And after 6 months, if you don't want it, you just give it back. Mm-hmm. It's that flexibility, and that's, I think, a key thing that we're missing here. You're not necessarily selling the leasing. You're not necessarily selling the system. You're selling the flexibility, which is something that companies at the moment with labour shortage just don't have.
Carlo, you can have the robotics HR company on your doorstep. You need to increase what you pay your robots. No, that's a really good point, actually, because when we talk about automation and reshoring and things, the perception is, there's low cost economies. We all know who they are, but they were adopting automation at a faster rate than anyone else on the planet right now. And that would tell me it's not just about labour. That is quite a small piece of the pie. So, Dan, what else? What other considerations should we look at when whether we decide in yes or no for automation?
There's loads of factors. We are seeing robots being purchased off of that could be throughput. Maybe the current manual process isn't fast enough. Safety. We're often finding that it potentially can be faster to do it manually, but maybe not safe. So there is an automation case to be had for most projects, or at least a couple of projects that are out kind of within your factory area, but not necessarily what you would originally think that automation was used for. I think automation was adopted very highly, especially in the UK, and it's very well known in the UK within the automation industry. And you're seeing a huge kind of throughput of cars going through factories, and everyone's just got in their head that it's all about throughput, and it's not. It's not now. It's there's so many different factors around why you would automate.
Yeah, and when we talk about automation, absolutely right. If you watch any of the major news channels, it's always the same picture, isn't it? A big long production line making thousands of the same vehicle. We live in a very customizable, is that the word? A customizable age now, don't you? Your trainers can be customized. Your car, God knows how many different variations of cars you can buy. And I think that's where automation plays into itself as well, isn't it? Along with obviously the software driving these decisions. I want a car with red seats, not green seats. I want this, I want that. We're going to get to a scenario fairly quickly. There's factories out there making cars where the first one might be a completely different model, not just a different variant, a different model. So this highly customizable, philosophy of everything, pretty much every part of our life we're seeing, Dan.
Yeah, I think it goes as well, not just FANUC products. If you're looking to automate a machine tool, or you're purchasing a machine tool now and you're not even looking to automate it at this stage, putting automatic vices on, having future-proofing yourself. Maybe you're not ready for the capital purchase of a robot or the capital purchase of a robot system, but that's fine. But future-proof yourself. So, when you do want to implement that change, or you do want to implement automation, it just makes it easier. You haven't got to change the whole process. You maybe just got to add a tender, so to speak, on the front of the machine. So, future-proofing your factory, whether you're automating now or not, is, I think, another key driver for kind of the adoption of automation in years to come.
Yeah, and obviously earlier on, Stuart, we were talking about some of the Make UK numbers, and I've got them to hand because my memory is not that great. But the lack of an industrial strategy. We don't want to talk politics. This isn't really political. I think pretty much everybody agrees, regardless who's in power, we need a cross-parliament industrial strategy. And Make UK canvass lots of different companies. 99% agree we need an industrial strategy. 56 believe there's never really been a joined up industrial strategy. 75% believe having one would help their business, and finally 85% think it would help manufacturing as a whole. What do you make of those numbers? The first one I noticed, 99% agree we need an industrial strategy. Who's that 1%?
I'm not quite sure, because it doesn't actually make sense, because you actually look at the shipbuilding strategy, which has been successfully rolled out over the last couple of years. You've seen a benefit to BAE Systems, to Babcock, and others, and surely it's a vote winner. If you had a robust and very clearly defined and clearly explained industrial strategy, 2.6 million people are involved in manufacturing or are employed in it. Surely there's some votes in it. So being quite cynical. It must
That's unlike you, Stuart.
I think there's more votes in that than bringing David Cameron back, but maybe. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And there's been six, on the podcast that we've recorded, Joe, in the past. I don't know how many different business secretaries did we go through. They were all saying the right thing, but there was nothing concrete, nothing behind it. And you'd hope that whichever, without going political, like you say, whichever government, forms the next government post after the election, that it will be number one on their agenda, but we can only hope.
But to get real traction, it needs to be cross-party, doesn't it? So regardless of what happens in Westminster, regardless who's in power, we've got this industrial strategy, robust industrial strategy. It's not going to change overnight. They could release one tomorrow. It's going to take the next decade, really, to turn us into this superpower we all crave.
No, absolutely. And there's, I won't mention the company name, but there's a friend that you'll know who I'm referring to, and he runs an emergency vehicle manufacturing company. And his level of frustration is sky high, because within the NHS and other bodies, there's no consideration to consider favourably UK-built, British-built products. Whereas they compete, but they can't export because they are in Europe and other countries. They are giving weighting and giving preference to domestic suppliers. So I'm not quite sure why that's not happening. But as you say, we need a robust and coherent strategy that's hopefully agreed, across all parties, as you say, Joe.
Dan, if I gave you the job, you're in charge of the advanced manufacturing industrial strategy, what would it look like?
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm no politician. I'm definitely no kind of economist either. But I think I've said it many times, and you will see me many times on videos like this, podcasts like this. Education is so key. And you know what the funny thing is we're finding as well, especially at places like Open House, it's not even the education of the shop floor staff or the apprentices. You're finding that their understanding of automation is actually quite high. This is education at board level. No, this is board level education. This is maybe understanding more around the return of investment and just how easy sometimes return of investment is. You know, we're sometimes even battling to get projects over the line that return of investment under a year. I just think, well, you know. So the education at board level is definitely, I think, would be a consideration of mine. Yeah.
And this big misconception of employing robots under minimum wage. It reduces, your cost of skills. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't get rid of jobs, does it? All you're doing, you upskill your machine operators quite often to jobs that they probably want to do anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of things I always say this. Robot adoption in the UK has never been higher. But also, the unemployment levels in the UK are at probably their all-time lowest. So, or genuinely or let's say in the past, however many years, 2, 3, 4 years. So I think that's a good correlation that we always refer to. And also the computer. How many people said about the computer it's going to take everyone's jobs? Now the world's built around it. But the bottom line is, automation has to continue and has to grow. Otherwise, these jobs that are here, could go out to the Far East and places like that. So it's important that we do automate, and it's important that we kind of don't see them as this absolutely job-taking monster, which they're not. They're job-creating. So yeah, I would say that's probably my firm standpoint on it. It has been now for a number of videos and podcasts I've done.
Mm-hmm. And Carlo, it's your business. What do you think manufacturing businesses will look like in 5, certainly 10 years if they don't adopt automation? How's that going to affect their business if we can look into the future of a business with zero automation or very low adoption?
I believe they won't be competitive on the market because getting automation will also lower the cost of production. So, for example, with robots, you don't need light, you don't need heating, you just let them run, and it's going to run the whole day. And that I believe is the why manufacturing is. If you don't adopt automation, you won't be competitive with Eastern countries.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You've got. It's not just the price of labour, it's the availability of labour, isn't it? And certainly with your business model, basically Uber robots, where you can just rent a robot for a period of time, I find that fascinating. Dan, if we can finish with you, if that's okay, we're going to go to Rowan in a minute, who's taken a tour around this marvellous facility, talking to some of your partners. But I believe that's 2:00 actually. But if we can just highlight some of those on this podcast, who would you choose to highlight? Obviously, there's too many to mention, unfortunately. But if we can just some of the highlights for you outside.
Yeah, I think just that. Look, every single partner here are here for a reason because they do great quality work and they have solutions that cover many applications. There are a few things I think it's definitely worth going to see Solent. About the business model they have, I think that's fantastic. We have some great welding partner here with us today, Cyberweld, for kind of your welding needs, automation welding needs, plastic injection molding automation, high tech. I think they're just to name a few. I could be here all day, but I think for trying to hit those kind of target audiences that I know are quite large, I would say those three are probably the ones that I would highlight first. Brilliant.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. As I say, 2:00, Rowan is going to be talking to a number of these partners, and I urge you to come back at 2:00. Gents, thank you very much. As I say, come back at 2:00 to listen to Rowan. Me and Stuart are going to get a coffee and rewrite this industrial strategy. But thank you very much for watching, and we will see you soon.